Start. Hi everyone. From 1 a.m. it's kind of Christmassy feeling because I had to put the lights on here. Slept a few hours and then it's a funny brain state to wake up to our nighttime calls, but it's actually really cool. I was saying today to someone that I don't feel any Christmas in here in tropics ever because I'm from Finland, so I'm used to snow and white and everyone is in a Christmas vibes there. So here is sun is shining. Now we have a typhoon days for 2 days, but it's there's something with the cold and snow which makes me feel this time of the year. So this is actually the first moment I'm able to kind of tap into that candlelight dark time of the year in North Europe feeling. So welcome. Some people are still landing to our Sunday call. So this is a space where all of our study groups meet, and kind of a space that also brings together the themes for this week. Sometimes it's a more community sharing call. Sometimes we take more themes and frameworks also. So this week in the inner intensive, 2 groups that we have ongoing at the same time. Now we've been looking a lot the theme of facilitation, and also a lot of questions that has come up from that. In Studios Mundos, which is the long-term study group, there's been a lot about playlisting and sound world facilitation themes also, but kind of keeping the space quite free. But as we've talked quite a lot about playlisting and music the recent months and weeks, so we're thinking it would be good, and it's good to kind of also focus a little bit the other aspects of facilitation. So today's call, the topics and themes would focus on our sharings and dialogue spaces and whatever comes in a flow in the space, but we would focus also more other aspects of facilitation that can come up, and we can look together. The gift of these calls is really to gather all of us in that kind of community space where we have a lot of Pi calls it seasoned facilitators and inner dancers, like people who come from way back, from many years of experience and holding space and exploring inner dance, and then very new ones, and then seeing how all of us are probably been journeying and processing and holding space for ourselves and others in different ways all of our lives, and in that kind of deep study of consciousness in different ways, depending on whatever whatever background we have. So we have a lot of experience as a group of people and a community of people from many different aspects of life, and that is all super valuable to look at and bring into the space. Inner dance kind of holds when it comes to the facilitation and holding space theme, very from my perspective only, but very particular actually world, and would be amazing today to look through those lenses, that world of facilitation. So even I might look things. This week we talked about roles in two of the calls, like what are the roles when we are holding space or facilitating also, or when we are with this type of processes. And some roles, for example, that came up was facilitation itself, like what it means to be a facilitator, But then there might be roles of like more coaching or mentoring or teaching, leading, being a leader, being a student, being a teacher, being a co-journey fellow in the space, and all of those, being a healer, being a therapist, and we all have different backgrounds, and all of those roles might be present in different ways when we are holding space. So we might have background with different roles also in our lives, and what we kind of bring as our own tool bank to the space when we start facilitating and diving into the journey. We are looking at facilitation and space holding from different ways. What means to hold space for ourselves. So when we go into deep processes and journeys ourselves, so what does it mean that I can facilitate myself or hold space for my own journeys, being kind of that awake observer in my process, and maybe that can be one aspect that kind of wakes up in us through inner dance. And then holding space for other people. They might be our family members, our neighbors, our colleagues, our pets, our friends, people around us in everyday life. So how does that kind of maybe have also formed through inner dance? And then when we do invite people to the space, of being a one-on-one sessions or group spaces, or looking at trainings or themes and the thematics of kind of study of consciousness. So how does it, and what does it look like when we hold space and facilitate like invited process spaces and free spaces like inner dance? So there's kind of a different motivations, intentions, and experiences also. Many of us, like some of us don't want to hold group spaces at all. Some of us want to explore and study these things to apply this to work with our own kids or people around us, or just our own, to understand and deepen and open kind of our own self journey with everything. So whatever it is, we can look at space holding from our own perspective, and maybe take tools and ideas and insights to whatever kind of field of facilitation we're looking at. So today, as long as we go, like as long as we kind of flow in our dialogues and talks, we don't need to have a set up call timing in that, but maximum 3 hours is our kind of limit. But we can see how long there's things to share and look at and bounce together and talk together, and if there's questions or things that come up. We kind of prepared our brains, some of us from Studios Mundus group also, and kind of co-holding the theme from a long experience perspective. So I'd like I can kind of help maybe to ask some questions or also facilitate some of the talks in the beginning. I don't know, Flor, if you are there in talking space already, but Tom is joining us, and Flor, Gra, Saule, for example, who's been long time and can maybe look at very particular with kind of years and years of experience of inner dance space holding from your perspective, this theme, and keeping it kind of out, like outside the music facilitation, but if something comes up, for sure. But what are kind of the other aspects of the holding the room and space? Okay, do we go time? Okay, maybe check in. Flor, are you there? Okay. She's having a cat mess issues. So maybe we can start with Saule. Solace in a speaking space. And would be nice also because we have new people in the community and space. So maybe just introduce yourself shortly with some short opening. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you coming from? In your own words.
Okay, that's unexpected, but good. I mean, when you're not prepared, then something spontaneous can come up. Yeah, I'm Saule. I'm from Lithuania, facilitating here in Lithuania for the past almost 6 years, gonna be 6 years soon. We're mostly holding facilitator trainings with my mom. She's also in the inner dance community and holding sessions. We used to do that a lot together. Also, we do it separately now mostly. But I don't know about the background. I just don't know what to say more. It's enough. Yeah, my journey actually started with the inner dance energy school with Pi, and then met other facilitators like Amara, Serena. I also know Italy from more or less the beginning of the journey. We met here in Lithuania when she was visiting. So it's been a long journey because inner dance has shifted many times. Well, it's been shifting and it will be shifting. And when it comes to space holding, apart, like actually space holding, apart from the music creation and holding of that aspect solely, I think that the entrance to it for me is the space itself, because you cannot really, like, it's very easy to trigger sympathetic, yeah, because I'm confused in Lithuanian. It's a different combination of letters. So sympathetic nervous system, it's very easy to trigger it with touch, with sound, with instruments. Just getting a person scared is very, very easy. But to create the safe space for parasympathetic to rise, it's the most important part. Because if the person doesn't feel relaxed and comfortable and safe, and doesn't feel the trust for you, it will be a kind of a bumpy ride. Too much of a friction trigger or something like that. So yeah, I really feel like creating a nice space with stands, with visually pleasing, comfortable, and as you know, aesthetics, temperature, everything matters. So that's about the space, and then yourself too. You have to be in a space where you trust, because your trust is the one that will bring in the resonance of trust from the other. So that would also be something I would look into before entering the space holding. And of course, at the beginning, nerves definitely come, and but I think it's okay, because when you kind of cross that threshold of being nervous, when you're like too nervous to understand that you're nervous, you kind of let go. And especially when the session starts, it's just everything seems to be in a perfect place. I don't know what else, Italy. Help me if I could say something more.
Is there from all these years we were looking at some, trust is a big word in this space, and then there was some questions about like boundaries and safety and how, so maybe intensity of the process, like what you witnessed and hold, and how intense, and how to kind of hold those kind of extremes also in the space, if anything comes from that theme.
Well, there are different layers to that. The intensity of, for example, myself, how I am in the space, it has been changing, because I used to like a very kind of provoking and intense facilitation. Touch might be strong, or touching specific points that are triggering. I used to like that. I think it gave, it seemed to be needed, or I felt like doing it. Now, when I look back, maybe it's something also for yourself, that you're looking for some sort of satisfaction of knowing that the process is happening, like strong enough, or that people are experiencing strong experiences. Lately, when the music has been shifting to something more abstract, I feel like the touch became more just supportive and holding, in a way, to counterbalance the triggers that might be happening in the music. And the intensity of the processes of people, it really depends. Like when we do a 10-day trainings, of course, people go very deep, and there are very intense processes, and you actually allow yourself to do very intense things. You are in agreement with people, and in trust with people, that you can touch them in parts that maybe you will not touch other people that are just there for the first time. And also, we've had, I don't know, I remember my mom cutting a t-shirt of a woman with scissors, just like cutting her open naked, like ruining her clothes, but it was what she needed, and she enjoyed. So it can be very, how to say, extreme. And somehow in that space, all those, in the hyper priming state, people definitely connect triggers into kind of answers. So it never really is something that ends up being inappropriate, when you yourself know what are the boundaries of yourself and the other person. If your boundaries are not further than the other person's boundaries, like, you have to really respect where the person is. And I don't know, like in Lithuania, people are not that expressive. I think that applies to most of Northern Europe. So I remember coming from, like, seeing processes in Bali, in Thailand, in Maya, also in the Philippines. There is way more expression and movement, and here people just seem to be lying down and nothing's happening. And I kind of had to learn. I remember the first years I had to kind of learn and come into trust with myself that the process is actually happening, because especially when you're learning, and this course is online, so you don't really see your classmates going into processes, but when you do, you see them being really intense. And especially, okay, you don't see the process, how it looks physically, but then you share it together, and it seems like people share a lot of things. So this space is very open and inviting for sharing. And sometimes, not sometimes, very often in the circles, for example, in sessions with like more public, with people from outside, people don't share as much. Some of them don't even want to share even a little bit. And what I've noticed recently why this happens is because like people who don't have much experience in kind of a spiritual path or well any kind of self exploration and studying of the self and the spirituality, people don't have vocabulary for that. So it might be that it's not that the process is not happening, is they have zero vocabulary for talking about whatever they witness. They could say like, oh, I saw a color, or I saw a bird, or just like very simple symbolic things that have kind of clear connection to like everyday simple vocabulary. And only people who have more experience with or a wider vocabulary, maybe even reading more books, or it's just it's very often the sharing kind of sums up what the person is capable of holding in complexity wise, because of course the process is happening, it's just very very much in space and not in linear time to kind of really connect, put all the cause and effect points one after the other. And the more people go into inner dance, the more they become familiar with the energy and with the space. And I've heard some people say like, oh my god, like the energy is so strong, my body's not holding it, like my body's falling apart, it cannot hold. And it's not even during the session, just a person is witnessing it in his life. And initially it's just something that is strong, big, and you cannot say nothing else than just like, oh, energy, it's too much. But then when you learn to surrender and let that energy kind of wash through you, with time you start seeing kind of patterns and things, and you kind of start learning about it, and it kind of shows the layers. It's just not one stream, but you suddenly start to differentiate different parts of it, and you can keep kind of understanding more aspects, facets of it, and then comes facility to speak about it. If something happened, don't remember, like, of course there are always situations where you seem like that you did a mistake during this, well, it seems like a mistake, like I don't know, you take a rattle and suddenly a part of it flies off and hits the head of a person, or a speaker falls off from the table, on the head of the person. But then when they're sharing, somehow it was like the shift in the process that kind of changed the journey and kind of made everything connected and needed. So maybe it's not an encouragement to do that intentionally, but whatever the space kind of calls upon itself, it's not that we can control everything within the process.
Is there
it's more about letting go of control? Yeah.
Is there some particular, like your own personal tool bank that you would feel like, okay, as a facilitator, space holder, and also has it shifted during the years, but is there some particular magic tricks? No, but some particular things you recognize that this is like Saule facilitating inner dance, and these are usually my tools, or these are the things that I use a lot in the space, or how they've shifted during the years, if they have, as a space holder yourself?
Well, I remember using a lot of instruments initially. We have a lot of instruments from all around the world, like primitive ones from different cultures. So a lot of that was used initially. Now I have them, and sometimes I don't lift up a single one. And I'm thinking, is there something like very unique? Well, I cannot think of something very specific. I do normally start with a circle and with a meditation in the circle before even starting to speak to people. I want them to kind of go into their own core rhythm, wave of breath or heartbeat, whatever that is, and also kind of opening the space with everyone coming in with how they feel initially. Well, that's kind of common. I don't know. I don't find anything now in my head. Now that you ask this question, I think in the next sessions I will look for those things because I was not.
Super. Yeah, we can continue also. Anything comes up and use advantage of your presence here in this space. That was a good opening. Thank you. We could give the voice to Floor. Also, Floor, if you would want to introduce yourself to open and then go into anything that comes up from there.
Hello. I just arrived in Costa Rica, so it's been hectic. Yeah, so I'm Flor. I generally have been living in Maya for the past few years. Originally from the Philippines, but have been living everywhere, mostly in Middle East, and now suddenly I ended up in Costa Rica. Been sharing inner dance for a while, and also doing immersions and trainings. We just finished one in Dubai a few weeks ago with Andre, my partner. And I would like to start with saying I really agree with Saule with the intensity of sharing this work, that over the years I have changed so much. Like, a lot of people know me and have experienced me as someone who's really, really intense and shamanic, and you know, the grandmother earth is gonna come and she's gonna take you to your dark. You know, I still do that, but there's a lot of change that has happened over the years when we understand the balance and the balance and the intensity, or the balance in the intensity. There have been moments, what I agree the most with Saula is that it's very different when I share the space or to share the energy in a retreat immersion setting, and in a normal 2-hour, 3-hour process setting, because there is that permission to go really, really deep. And especially when people come to an immersion, it's either they want to go very deep into themselves, or they want to learn to facilitate, or they're ready to facilitate, whether at that moment or at a later stage. So my principle in facilitation personally is I wouldn't normally take anybody deeper than where I've gone. So I bring that invitation to the people, and that becomes their inspiration to go deep. And going deep means let's go all the way, you know. And that could be like Saule's mom cutting the dress or whatever. that gives themselves the capacity to give permission to themselves to go very, very deep. So I'm talking now about retreats or immersion and stuff. So it can be very, very intense in a training setting, in an immersion setting. I would like to give an example, and this could be one of those things that you could prepare for something intense or scary that can come up in a normal 2-hour, 3-hour setting. So I've experienced someone, for example, who went to his devil, meeting the devil, and then meeting his devil. It's basically his devil, and he started doing this great, scariest sound, loudest sound, and wanted to hurt everybody around him. And the most important thing that was set was the foundation of trust. It's always the trust in the person's self, and the trust in me, and the trust in the room, and the trust in the space. So when the trust has been set, that person can go as far as he can. However dark that space is, however painful that death is, in his perception of energetic death. And this person went so scary, like a lot of the people around in the retreat place got really, really scared. But also they trusted me, so I gave him permission to go deeper. Without, when a person is already in that space of really, really facing the dark, what holds him is reminding him of his light. That's in my experience. When someone is going very, very deep in the hole, is whispering, or like going into the gentlest space holding, you don't, if you don't know how far he's gone, and you don't know if you've gone to that depth of where he's going, it's just reminding him of that he can hold his light and keep going if he can, and hold his light and keep going. It's like reminding him he can hold his torch and he can go deeper. That's as per my experience. So I don't necessarily stop them if they feel they can remember that they can activate that inner bulb to hold themselves on the way to wherever they're going. And that's one of the most, not one of the most intense was the person was remembering also her own devil. And she's bigger than me. I'm very small. So she started wanting to hurt all of us meaning the other participants and me. And she was trying to hurt us and scream so loud. And the same thing, the strongest tool I get to use with these very intense moments is really going into the, the Care Bears when they want to do something. I don't know, some of you might be young, but if you're my age, you know what Care Bears is. It's like really activating this that intensity of the frequency of love and the wisdom of the heart. It holds the space. Sometimes when a person is in a very, very intense space, what it needs is that intensity of the reminder of what's even more intense with darkness, which is love itself and the heart itself and the light within. That has always worked for me. Yeah, I hope that sets some conversation or questions later. But yeah, like Saule was saying, like intensity has has changed so much in my nature of facilitating and facilitating circles, spaces, or facilitating trainings and immersions. My very first training that I did, there was a lot of um, tantric energy that was infused in it, and it was super, super intense. That on the second day, everyone was sick and everyone was late, and they couldn't even go home. It wasn't a sleeping retreat. They have to go home. It was in Dubai, and they're all experienced facilitators. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go very, very deep. But there's a lot of working on the womb and the yoni and stuff like that, and it was just a very, very tantric space. And I felt the need to my next retreats to or immersions to kind of like step back a little bit, because then it just became so um I'm sure that what it did to them was they ended up having that attachment to that intensity, and I didn't want that anymore in my next immersions. So um slowing down and watching the natural process of how it wants to evolve, yet holding the capacity to and the confidence to be able to hold intensity and scary stuff that might happen in the space is very, very important. Um, yeah, going back to what I shared, that my biggest principle is that I don't take people much, much deeper or deeper than where I've gone. So um, starting to facilitate, um, I always invite people to go deep in the personal journey, go deep in the personal process, go deep into the journeying process, into the allowing process, and the learning process of how to trust the self. Because when we learn how to do that, we are able to hold the space for others, to give them the invitation and the permission to trust themselves, because that's the basic foundation. Um, Same with uh, I know that Italy has set these questions like what tools in holding the space. My strongest tool for me is the voice, the singing, the verbal guidance, because it sets the tone. Apart from the music, of course, is the main tool. But what is as powerful, or it can even be more powerful with the music I'm playing, is actually the frequency of my verbal guidance and my songs, my singing. So when I say singing, it doesn't, you don't need to be a singer, you don't need to sound good. The most powerful uh, frequencies of the voice I emit through this mouth are actually scary sounds and like the weird toning sounds and just the weirdest channeling. And again, as the basic foundation, trusting in that sound is very important, but allowing the person to hear from the beginning, like setting the space in the beginning, um uh into the expectation that there will be sounds coming out of me that they might have not heard before, that's part of all the soundscape, that's part of all the touch, that's part of all the space holding, um makes them pre-aware that those kinds of things might happen. I'm talking about the scary sounds that I kind of produce. um it is very important though, as for facilitation, to know that the music might not happen in a journey. I'm talking I'm saying this because it's a very important part of my process over the years, that technology don't work with me sometimes. Speaker don't work, um light disappears, um instruments, something is wrong, like the drum is not happening and stuff. So um it's one of the things that I kind of prepare new facilitators with, that technologies or the physical stuff might not happen. Or the very first private facilitation I did, the music actually went upside down. This was still with the old system of the iTunes playing. Like all the music went upside down, and I had to fully trust, and it was perfect for her journey. In short, I'm just quite known for having technologies not working with me well. But luckily, because I use my voice a lot, I've had journeys that I ended up using at least just one instrument, which is a shaker. Or if there are no instruments around, like my body is the instrument, my hands are the instrument, the wood around, the plants around, anything that you can take around is an instrument. um, I've shared it before. I'll share it right now because maybe it's very important, that one of the strongest journey of facilitation I had was with Pi, and the speaker didn't work, and I had to sing all the way through for like an hour and a half or more, and it was very, very powerful. Um, there is a choice though to declare that the journey will continue or not continue. It depends on your capacity and your confidence to actually carry on, and it depends on the desire of the participants to carry on with you or not. Um, I was facilitating I was invited to facilitate in a training retreat once in Bali, and the speaker didn't work, but the people were already lying down, so I had to carry on, and it was still the same as the music would have played, because I kept on using my voice and using the only instrument I had, which was the drum. So I think that's all I would share right now, and I hope that that opened up some, yeah, some things for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll hear some voices to open. Gra, are you there? Tom is stuck in snow in London, so he'll come later. Okay. Yeah, Gra.
Hi.
Hi.
From England. Hello, everyone. I'm Gra. I speak from Brazil right now in this room. And, well, I've been in inner dance circles for 3 years now. I was living 3 years, yeah, almost 4 years. I was living in Maya for most of the journey. So since 2019, yes, when I arrived in Maya, and then I left the Philippines, I guess 4 or 5 months ago. So during this time, I've been holding space, some online journeys that we were holding, the intensive calls, but also some journeys in Maya and retreats we had with people, and also some sessions that would happen sporadically in the island. And recently, when I was now doing some tour in Europe, I got to also experience different collaborations with different facilitators, in which one I met Saul. Yay! Very spontaneous day, very intense in its own shape, very nice. And also some work alone. So I've been mostly exploring co-facilitating and facilitating with myself, also holding immersions by myself, and gathering notes of whatever this energy is sharing with us. I've also started, I think it's been 1 month, no, 1 month now, 1 year and a half, I started also DJing, making playlists with different techniques, and mostly, well, I started making playlists when we were in the online journeys. So I was recording them, doing them live, but recording. And now when I facilitate, I do it live with the DJ Pro. It's the same app that I've been using for all this time, but also exploring other apps and other ways of holding or allowing the space to be held from the perspective that I see it. So I was thinking also, and I'm usually not the fondest person to talk about boundaries. I have my own little process with words. So I try to be very careful with the word boundary. And I always try to look at what are we actually, or what am I actually trying to protect with the word boundary. But it's also an interesting process for me as a growing facilitator, and I commonly see this as creating this other self that we have inside of ourselves. So it's kind of like growing or allowing this new identity to actually grow inside of you, just like we have different identities, like the daughter, the mother, the sister, the caretaker, or all of these fractals that we have inside. There is also this facilitator baby that is born eventually when we start facilitating. So in order to allow this baby facilitator to grow and to create the conditions for it to grow, I borrow a lot of what I've learned through my own process regarding trust and regarding some stages, some developmental stages. I also borrow a lot of what I've seen other facilitators doing, but at the same time, a lot of what I have experienced with little children, because I used to teach kids. I have been teaching actually since I was 17. Yeah, since I was 17, I've been teaching. I had been teaching, and for most of my teaching time, I was teaching children. And also in Maya, we were holding like spaces for children. And that there is this thing that I've learned a lot with them, or holding space for them, is holding the idea or the sense that they are powerful, they are knowledgeable, they are wise, and they are evolving in their own processes as they grow. And this is also what I remind myself when I'm holding the space, and when I realize that, okay, I'm also growing as a facilitator. In this sense, I try to be very aware of my own language, of my own dualities and biases as well. So I've done some work as to not even use the words mistake anymore, even to myself, to understand that if we do come from an inner dance perspective that tries to hold that beautiful, colorful mandala, everything is perfect as it is, which doesn't mean that there isn't space for growth, but it is perfect as it is, and we are evolving as the journey goes. So this is what I constantly tell myself, and this is also what allows me to do the weirdest things in the space, like when a pregnant woman with a very big belly is exploding in energy, I'm just there pushing more and more and helping the woman to do like this crazy bridge position with a huge belly, which is like, wow, would you do that? Yes, I would, in the sense that if it is what is in the space, what the space is channeling, understanding that that I'm a channeler as much as the other is also a channeler in this, and there is also dialogue that is happening in the space. I borrow also a lot of things that I've learned from language as I studied linguistics and discourse. So understanding that I am not the sender of one message and the other person is not only the receiver, that there is actually a communication. I'm able to sense what this body is communicating as much as this other person is able to sense what this space is communicating. So this might sound like a broad concept, but this is what helps me trust also, and to hold trust, because in the end, for me, we are facilitating trust in this process. And this is also what I tell people, regardless if it is an immersion of 3 or 1 week or just a single process of 3 hours. What I tell people is that we are all facilitating trust, that, and the trust is not in me, it's in themselves. So I usually, and this is also something that I myself do, to break some of the expectations and to let the space know also what the energy has taught me, is that I actually verbalize in the beginning, I'm not a healer. I'm not here to heal anyone. And we are here to co-hold the space. And we are here to allow things to unfold, to be seen, to be felt, and to take responsibility for them. So these are things that I actually word in the sessions, regardless, and for people who have done it and for people who have not done it. I also explore with the space and how to set the space to create trust. I've been in spaces that, yes, I would put many things and flowers and create a mandala in the center and organize the mats all around in a beautiful circle. And I've also been experiencing or exploring spaces in which I don't prepare anything, that there isn't an altar, there isn't anything. And to also explore within myself, how does the trust is, how do we channel trust, or how do we allow this body to speak a language of trust? So what would be the elements, or my own trusting language, my own trusting mechanism to hold this space for what it is in a specific time? I also let people know that this is, in a sense, a subjective experience in which they will see, or they will have experiences that are very particular to themselves, and also an objective experience that they will see similarities in the processes when we share, and that will also mirror some of the collective waves that we are going through right now. In this sense, I always also tell them that, yes, this is a subjective experience. I'm here making sounds, but this experience is also not something that is happening just because of these conditions that are being in the space right now. So it's like this sweet big reminder that everything that the person ate before the session or during the week, everything that the person did, sports or relaxing or anything, all of these other things, and also all of the historicity of this person, all of this huge pool of ancestral information that we carry in ourselves, all of that is also making part of the soup. So there might be processes in which the person goes into some more electric moments, and also parts or processes that they go more into some magnetic, dense, or mind-based processes. And this is also, I think I try to break as much as I can when I am introducing or opening the space through the language and things that I say. But this is also something that I say in the beginning, how to deal with these expectations and what is the conception of mind, or the understanding of the mind and the body that inner dance holds. That in inner dance, there is no such a thing as a duality, the mind and the body, that I am too much in my mind and I'm not in my body. So these are things that I've seen that they help me hold a space that is more open to understand the phases of the stages of the processes that people go through. To also, and this is maybe what I've learned the most, especially talking about boundaries and how we set the boundaries in the space, or how we put things into different folders, how also I honor my own space or my own stage within the process, knowing where I am at, also knowing that I trust what the energy has taught me during my own process, how the energy has taught me to read trust, to read fear, and to talk or answer to them. And also what is it that I am vibrating? What is it that I am resonating right now? So this is, for me, like the fact that I I carry this resonance or this way of vibrating things. I do believe, or I do trust the principles of resonance, that everyone that is in the space is there because of resonance. And I just invite everyone to be in such a space that I take responsibility. I'm here, of course, holding the space with everything that I know and however I can, but also that I'm no bigger than the other. I'm not in a space that I know more, or that I am here to protect people from anything, or to bring people back if they are not able to come back, or all of these words that I've been trying to use in order to demystify also a little bit of the process. And also learning how to speak the language of the body. What I realized that helped me bringing more trust in the space is demystifying a little bit of what this mystical experience is. And how I do that is also that I just let people know that, hey, this is a very natural process that your body goes through every night when you go to bed. And people just like, what? I do this already? Yes, you do this already when you are sleeping. And this is what we are experiencing now, but you're just awake and you are just in a circle full of other people, and you might be touched and you might not be touched, which is also something that depends on your will, if you want to be touched or no, so not. So I also let them have the sense that they are also creating this space, and like, I don't want to be touched, please don't touch me, or share whatever they feel like sharing. But I feel that yes, this aspect of demystifying what is big or what is unknown, and bringing some sort of neutral language that speaks about the body. What is the sleep? What is the sleep stage? What is it that we are actually doing in the inner dance space, and how to bring it into less. I'm not saying that I don't take it seriously. I take it very seriously. It's something that I've been devoting my life to, like, for the past years. But also to let people know that this is not as a scary experience as it might feel, or as I know that there are some belief systems that carry this principle, or this fear principle, that fear that is behind what things are, of how things are constructed. So neutralizing it and just being very objective with it, and say, yes, this is your body. Like, you are just learning what your body is. This has helped me hold this space that is also I'm also able to hold more of the dialogues. I realized when things are more neutral, in this sense that people, they realize in the end they come like, oh yes, I didn't feel anything at all, I didn't see colors or anything. But then of course their faces are entirely different, their energy or the way they are speaking is entirely different from what the session was in the beginning. And these are also things that I let them know, that there are different ways of sensing things, and you will have your own subjective way of perceiving things, because you are unique in your own totality. And whatever the energy is showing to you right now, it is you, it's yours to take, and you're here to share that. And yes, what I usually, when I was holding some trainings, what I kept saying the most is like what I feel when I'm holding anyone. And if it is in the most intense process, if the person is clearly in an altered state, you see that the eyes are not here and the body is moving in this animalistic way, and everyone that is looking at it is just like, okay, this person has just lost all of the marbles and everything. So what I tell people that I do when this thing is happening is just to remind myself that this person is a universe. And I do come to people, and when I touch them, I try to resonate this from my heart space, that this person is an entire universe with everything that this person needs to heal itself, to see itself, and to support itself. And I do say it in my head when I myself feel the fear. When I myself see like, okay, this person might be going into aphasia right now, and I've been to aphasia as well, so I have the feeling sometimes that it can tell you when the person is near this these stages. So I've been to spaces also that I felt that, okay, maybe this is where this person is going. And yes, maybe if this happens in the space, I'm here, and how do we hold collective responsibility for this? So what I do tell myself is that, and in the trainings, I also saw that when these weird things were happening, that people looked like they were losing their marbles or their minds and not being able, I've seen so many times people holding bodies with the idea that this person is losing the mind and this person is not going to come back, and we need to bring this person back, and we need to, I don't know, like touch the heart or make this person purge so this person comes back. And I've seen how this has created some sort of loop in the energy that is, and it also comes from that space, that separation space of not coming back from where, from your own body and whatever, I don't know. So I've seen in the eye, so I've been seeing that it is also holding, especially when we are co-facilitating the space, learning how to hold that, the one that might be judging the experience of the others, because people would look at me like, is this okay what this person is going through right now? Like, can I come and, is this touch okay? Can I come and touch here? And am I not going to, break this person? Like looking for that confirmation or for that validation from me. And that was also very scary. Like what authority do I have in this person's process and body to actually say that, yes, it's okay? But I do understand the social and psychic dimensions behind this. But my point here is learning also how to talk to the colonizing eye that is observing the process from a facilitation perspective also. And this includes my own eye, my own colonizing eye. And also the one that is going through the experience, to be able to say that, to be able to resonate that thing from inside, that yes, this experience is the experience, to the one that is in the fear, judging whatever is happening to the other. And yes, to the other, yes, we can do this. You are in universe. You can, you have all in yourself to deconstruct everything that you need. And you also have the immense capacity to build all the blocks that you have. It's all inside you, and we are all here. So it's been like this funny dance with the outside and the inside. And I've been learning more and more how important it is in the end to be able to hold inside that space, that vibratory space from which you actually embody this. We are ourselves in a space of deep trust, deep trust in everything that we have learned and everything that we have not learned as well. So I also tell people that I'm also here studying this space. I'm also here as a student of energy, and they are also teaching me what energy is. So I play a lot around with language, how to break these hierarchies, and I do also let them know what the 3 hours of process is going to be. So for people, some people, they do need this, they do need to know what is going to happen, or know what is going to happen. So we try to create a story, we try to create some context to allow that thing to do its thing. So I also do weird stuff in the sessions, and I let them know that things might be a little bit weird, some weird sounds might come up, or touch might come up or not come up, and whatever is there in full trust. So, and of course, doing things with the music. I've learned or I've been learning from it how to hold transitions in the music, how to allow more space through the sound. So after some chaotic moments, to slowly bridge things, or to have some breathing space in the music, and to have some transition, some very deep and focused transition points in the music. So people in themselves, they find it's kind of like having through the music the space that they need to process the intensity that they are going through. So allowing also the music to remind them that the mind is a friend of the body and the body is a friend of the mind, that we go through very expanded states and electric spaces, but we also have a mind and a thinking process that we don't want to lose. And it's brilliant that we have this. We've been working our essays for like years to get this brain point that we have right now, and we don't want to lose that. So allowing both sides and some of the dualities that I know that are there to kind of be neutralized in the space through language, and also through the music with the transitions, and also through touch. And maybe, yeah, I think that the common language, finding that common language with, I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes. That common language with myself, how to really be able to hold that point of resonance with my own words has been helping me a lot to hold this. So what I truly believe, or how I truly feel that this is clearly, or as much as possible, considering how limiting energy, how limiting words are sometimes, but it's as close as possible of what is in the space. So yeah, this might be what creating trust is. I remember in the beginning I had like, okay, what is trust? How do I trust? And I had to find within myself how I read, how things I read, what are my own symbols. And I do see a lot of stuff, and a lot of ugly stuff like demons and snakes and dark stuff coming out of people's bodies. And all of this is in this space. And I do come from a background that is very superstitious, that is full of fear and full of dogmatic ways of understanding this. So checking in with the nature of my belief systems, and if they are coming from pure trust or pure objectivity or fear and subjectivity, also helps me allow people not to colonize people with my beliefs, and allow their experiences to be what they are. And sometimes, like when I see all of this, when I'm seeing all of this crazy dark shadow things in people's bodies, they come, and this is what really is still it's been 3 years and I always hear this in the space. So I'm there having this thing with the dark, and seeing this person's demons and black stuff coming out of their bodies, and they come to me like, I felt so much love throughout the entire session, and yeah, thank you, were pure light. And it's always interesting for me to see how I was like in the other spectrum. So I was holding a part of the story, and that might not be the person's process in the story. So being able also to check all of these constructs that are in me, and learning that these are kind of symbols that we have to communicate with the energy, has also helped me to trust more also the weird stuff that is happening, to see that maybe this is just how my body is reading this right now because of all the social context that I have as I grew up. This is the language that my body or that the energy uses to talk to me. It doesn't mean necessarily that this person is being possessed. It just means that this is how energy is able to talk to me as a facilitator. But if it was another facilitator, it might have been a completely different symbol. So checking in with these boxes that I have inside has also allowed me to see that in the space, and to hold a space that is more open to diversity, in the sense that, okay, you are experiencing light. Okay, I was experiencing dark, and what do you do now? What is this, and how do we find this common language to look at this reality that is multiple, diverse, and with many, many different colors. So I guess this is what comes right here, right now. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'll mute myself.
Thank you. Yeah, we can have a Christmas special adding this cat is called Jingle Bells, and she appeared to Maya very tiny and screaming maybe 3 years ago, and then it was Christmas Day, so Gra gave her a name, Jingle Bells, and that's still her name. But we call her JB. It's like a rapper name for her. So she's a shared cat. Gra took care of her the first months here. Okay, thank you, Gra. Thank you, Saule, and thank you, Flor. Talking about seasoned. Oh, Arantxa has a cat there too. I can have a cat call. Seasoned facilitators joining and being in the community and space. Probably one of the most seasoned ones, if that's the word. Long-term community members and persons is Tom, and Tom is here in the call from UK. He's been, I don't know, is it 10 years or 12 years, but way back since the kind of origins and flows of inner dance, also how kind of it all started to sparkle globally through all of us and people around. So Tom, if you had a short intro, but would be interesting a little bit to hear introduction from you also, because there's a lot of new people in the group space, who you are, where you're coming from, but then anything you feel to share about within the theme of kind of your experience, facilitation, holding space, what are your tools, what are your flavors in it, what are your experiences, maybe if there's some retrospective what's been changing in you or the spaces around, but anything you feel to bring to the space. We would love to hear you.
Thank you, Italy. Yeah, I saw the questions that you posed before, and I just actually got back from London. We were doing a session this morning, and it's been snowing here, and so snow in the UK just grinds everybody to a halt. There's people like frozen in their cars trying to dig each other out, and it's been a bit chaotic, really. So that's why I'm a bit late to the call. In regards to inner dance and facilitation, I guess thinking back to when I first started facilitating, or when I first started doing the inner dance myself, and I was really curious about the visions, the visuals, the movements and the theory and what was going on, and there was something that was really captivating about it. But I can see after years that I feel like my energy's kind of calmed down with it in some ways. It's still very interesting. There's still a lot of the theory that really interests me, but it feels much more like it's come to ground. And I guess I noticed that difference in myself from when I first started facilitating. I was very kind of excited, and with that excitement came tension, and there was all my own ego stuff with it as well. Like I was wanting to give people an experience and wanting to create this thing and wanting people to like me for giving them an experience and all of that kind of thing. I guess that kind of gets in the way, but it's also like I look back on it and feel like it's maybe part of it as well. But I think if I could go back and speak to myself at that time, it would be something, I would say something along the lines of mirroring, echoing really what Gra was just saying about being curious about your own experience and seeing what's being reflected back in you and being sincere with that. And, you know, if you're bored, it's like, I noticed I was bored. Or if you're tired, I noticed I'm tired and frustrated, or I'm angry, or I'm all of like the full spectrum of emotions, rather than, oh, it was wonderful and I was so happy to be here and it was all love and light. And I think that for me is what's changed a lot. I don't actually feel that often now. I really feel curious because I think each session there is something really curious to explore and investigate. But when I was first doing it, there were times where it wasn't the experience that I wanted to happen. So then I would get bored and angry and frustrated. And so I really started to notice that within myself. And I felt over time just a sense of kind of giving up in terms of, I really want to create this experience for these people in order to feed some sense of who I want them to think that I am, and all of that stuff. So now I guess it feels much more like, I suppose, an exploratory space, but I feel like the part of it that is most alive and intriguing for me is I like the creative aspect. I like the music and creating the music and feeling the music and building layered soundscapes and experimenting and exploring. And I think that spirit of curiosity and exploration, it really took me it took me longer to get out of my own way with that. I think to have that sense of I can really try some stuff out here, like try out this sound here or try out that sound there, and just do iterations of sessions to explore and experiment. And yeah, I think when I have been doing sessions in the UK, it's a lot different. This is another aspect that's really interesting to me, is the difference in cultures. Like in some cultures, it's very wild and expressive, and I'm thinking of Spain particularly, but all the sessions that I've done there where it's been really full and people are really very much in their bodies and expressive, almost to a theatrical or performative degree. But I find that the deeper you go with any particular group, the more permissions there is to go and explore that, and that's fine too. You know, and I was certainly doing that at the beginning as well. It's like, I think I'm feeling the energy. I'm not sure if I'm feeling the energy. I'm just going to do this anyway because it feels like what I think I might do if I was feeling the energy. And just like play around with that. And the more I found I gave myself permission to do that, the more the body opened up and the more I was able to just let stuff happen. And I think the first time I really experienced what I would very much recognize as the spontaneous and uncontrolled movements of inner dance was actually during a gong bath. And I'd already done like a year or two of inner dance and been with different movements and then questioned and wondered what was going on. And then I remember waking up in this gong bath, like kind of falling asleep into that deep state, that line between sleep and but just conscious sleep. And suddenly waking up and my arms were moving all by themselves and I was looking at them, and it really kind of freaked me out. Like I didn't know what that was, but it was the motions that I'd seen in inner dance. You know, there's this kind of swirly movement, and I thought, wow, that's really something. You know, I've wanted to feel that before, but I never actually felt it until I got to this place. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I guess it's, in some senses, it's like permissions to explore movement. And I've seen other people who've had these very sincere movements and it looks a little bit more like a contact improv. Maybe 2 seconds, there's a piece of wood that's just fallen out of the fire. The house to burn down while I'm giving my spiel. Yeah, so permissions to explore movement. And see what that's like. And now, like, we do give that permissive space here in the UK, but it's very rare that anybody uses it. It seems like it's very much just, okay, am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? But it's there and it's nice. And I do find, like, the more you can build a bunch of regular people who do it, and particularly if you're doing, say, immersions, that trust builds amongst the group, and then you can start to kind of embrace a bit more of the weirdness and see where it goes. And it's nice to see that deconstruction of, this is the right way to act in this circumstance, and this is what I should be doing, into a more, oh, this is really just the experience of what it's like to be me in this moment. This is the experience of what the body is doing. And it's so, like, close to, like, the real experience rather than the controlled or manipulated experience of how I think I should be doing in order to fit into society or get maybe my attachment need for love met. Maybe there's a kind of a thing of, if I stray too far out into the weirdness, I'm going to dismember myself from the group, and the fear around that. So yeah, I like that. I liked what Gra was saying from where I came in and heard about it. The piece about decolonizing people from my beliefs, and that's very much the space I try to hold as well. If I don't know what's happening, like, I just tend to say, I don't know what that means. And I used to think that I had to have an explanation for it before, or some kind of, create some kind of spiritual meaning from it, or say some kind of half-baked scientific explanation that I hadn't really thoroughly thought about. But, like, the truth is, I don't really know, but it might be this, or it could be this. And I find kind of positioning myself metaphorically next to the person to try to explore that with them really helps. And it's the way that to do it for me, where I actually feel most solid in myself, because I'm not trying to kind of palm off something onto them that I think is, oh, this is what's happening, or this is, here is what's happening. It's like, so that I look like I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've had to come quite far back to get to that point, where just to admit where it's all right that I don't actually know what's happening. But it's interesting that it's happening, because something's happening and people are having these experiences. And I'm really curious about sleep, and I'm really curious about brain waves, and I'm really curious about meditation. I'm really curious about the movements that come through, and the visions, and, like, that landscape, that kind of soft place is really compelling to me. And I like exploring that with other people, and I feel like that's something that really works for me. What else did you say? Scariest situations to prepare for. Yeah, so I had I had some scary situations. So, like, once, I don't know though, it wasn't that scary at the time. For some reason, I just felt like I can handle this because I'm the man. So there was some kind of ego involvement where I was like, this is fine. But there was a situation where it's what looked like, to all intents and purposes, like a kind of a possession, where this woman started speaking in this really kind of deep growling voice, saying that she was going to come for all of us. And, like, her eyes, something like The Exorcist, this kind of vibe. And I was very, like, fresh off the boat at that point, just very new to all of this. And but I was so kind of immersed in the weirdness that I was like, this is kind of on point. Like, this is on the track that I'm on right now, and things are weird, and this is weird, and that's kind of normal within the context of weirdness. So for some reason, it didn't faze me. And and I guess maybe it still wouldn't now, because even back at the time, I can think it's like I didn't really have a label for it. It's like I don't know what's happening, but I'm really more curious than I am fearful of it. It's like, this has never happened to me before. This is really, really interesting. And I think that kind of energy, or like speaking from that energy, or letting that energy articulate itself in sounds and words and whatnot, and body movements, that curiosity is something that really opens up a space for something like that to come out and not meet with the resistance of this has to be forced out and exercised and cleansed and cleared and fixed and all of that. And so, and it did, it was just like play, really. It was just like, oh, let's play. And I don't know, it reached its natural conclusion. Yeah, it just seemed to like burn itself out. And I guess that was quite a valuable lesson for me. And one that I've learned time and time again is like, if you kind of let it play itself out, you don't have to force yourself to trust. Like you can kind of bring your own feeling into it as well, I think. But like the more you're practicing observing that and like trusting that and including that, it's like the inclusion part, including it in the experience, the more it tends to just help support the flow. There was, I think the other situation that was scary was, there was a point where I thought I'd gone a little bit too far in France. So we did this immersion there, and it's like people, I come from like a martial arts background, and so I was quite into like very forceful, aggressive type stuff. And sometimes my music choices would be a bit just dark and just like explore the darkness, you know, and heroic maybe is the word. It's like taking people on a hero's journey and, you know, glory and all of this kind of thing. And so there was this one track that I put together called Waves, and it's a really like intense journey. When I look back at some of the earlier mixes I was making through Inner Dance, it's like some strong stuff in there, you know. And I guess it reflected where I was at in my kind of fighting career and journey at the time. And I think I remember there was a point at that one, and the group that we were working with, it was about, I think it was one of the last days of the immersion, and the group were they were all in. They built up so much trust with each other that it could just go all in, and there was no holds barred, so to speak. And so there was like screaming and crying and shouting, top of the lungs, this like apocalyptic noises and movements coming from this group. And to the point where I felt myself like shake a little bit, like, oh, I've gone too far. I think I've broken these people. And I started to get a bit worried, because I could see that like the other facilitators were looking at me like, what's happening? What have you done? Kind of thing. I didn't really know what was happening or what I'd done. And I guess it was like trying to keep myself a little bit composed at the time and in that place of curiosity. And it felt right to go and support the other facilitators. So it was like to go to the other facilitators, hand on the back, and support them to do their job better. And that kind of, I don't know, that kind of pulled it through. It was like because I could feel that pull of me wanting to go and save everybody and pull them back from like the abyss or the apocalypse or whatever. But I think going to support the other facilitators was really, it felt like the right thing, and it did work out in a way that we were all able to kind of bring that rage out in a well-held way. And I think the biggest group that I ever did was 200 plus people at a festival in Portugal, and there was like six facilitators with 6 facilitators doing this group, and it was a festival setting, so it wasn't really like an intimate space where there's lots of privacy and all of that. So some people were having really intense reactions, and some people were having they were just like lying there and fairly still, and I wasn't sure how I was really going to hold that space, and so I was quite cautious beforehand to frame it in terms of responsibility, and frame it in terms of like, at the end of the day, like, you can always stand up, like you can always open your eyes, you can always come back, and you can always find some safety in the breath and holding the body. And I remember Pi said something to me once that I thought was quite, well, one of the many things that he said over the years that's been quite profound. But this idea of people worrying about whether they're sharing energies with one another, and is this mine or is this yours, or whose is this, or where did it come from? He said that, you know, if you're feeling that thing, then it doesn't necessarily matter where it came from. It's like you're feeling it. It's kind of yours right there in that moment. It's you feeling it, and it's you that has power with that. If you are able to let go of trying to control it, it's like that's your process to work through. And so holding that kind of field of personal responsibility, like collective responsibility, looking out for yourself, or like being aware of what's too much for you, what's not too much for you, invitation to trust, but being okay with being able to say no and drawing a boundary. And it's like, if it's too much, you can go, like you don't have to stay, or you can come and speak to us afterwards. But then with the invitation to, you can also go a little bit further and explore that and see what that's like, and see where it leads, because that's kind of ultimately what it's about. It's like trust what's happening at the moment, and how much can you stretch into that trust to see how it unfolds and where it goes from there. And that worked out really well, the big group. It just felt really magic. Like, I think the facilitators did really, really well. And it really felt like just a really magical experience. I don't know how to describe it. Just so many people in process, and this collective heart field, I suppose, kind of going deep and exploring and being curious about what they're experiencing, was just something quite profound. In the session today, funnily enough, one of the things I've been playing with lately is peripheral awareness. And I think one of the questions you asked was, what is the human body as an energy field? And it's funny, I was just talking about that this morning, in regards to, well, we have this idea of identity. This is, I finish where the air meets my skin, and then to go a little bit more micro on that, of like, well, the air is in relationship with the skin. You know, there's a kind of a sensing thing going on. You're inhaling the environment and exhaling the environment. So it's not, when you kind of go into the details, it's not exactly obvious where you begin and where the environment ends. It's like the lines are actually less defined and more blurry. And then, of course, you've got the electromagnetic field that comes out from around the heart, which is apparently about 5 meters in diameter. And so is that you? And you would have to probably concede that, well, yeah, I guess so, if it's coming from the heart. So what's it like to fill up the space around you a little bit more and just diffuse have that kind of diffuse identity and peripheral awareness, and feel into the space above and the space below you and the space all around you, and use language to like soften that sense of rigid identity that people tend to walk into a room with. And that's been really interesting, and it's certainly been something that I apply in other areas of my work as well when I'm coaching with people. And it's like, well, I'm having this experience, I'm having these feelings, and the initial reaction is there's a sensation happening here, and so all of my awareness gets kind of contracted in around that sensation. And if you can catch that in the moment and hold that peripheral awareness at the same time, it's like the body's having an experience of a flow of sensations within the context of a larger field of awareness of environment. There's just like less, it feels like there is less imperative to try to have awareness sucked into just they talk about this in Vipassana meditation as well, like the gross sensations, the strong sensations, like I'm having this experience here, so my awareness gets focused and localized just in that point. But like to catch it and still be able to diffuse it outwards creates a lot more space for it to actually be an experience. And another thing we've been working on in the group is letting yourself have an experience before, not needing to make an experience, not needing to make a meaning from the experience before you've actually had it, because that tends to be a big sticking point for people. It's like, I'm feeling something, what does it mean? And so immediately you're sucked back into this, what's the category that I put this in type thing, which tends, at least as far as I can tell, to be a kind of a fear response. It's like, I want to know what it is before I can feel safe. If I know what it is, then I can feel safe to have it. And sometimes you can play on that with people. And giving them context, like inner dances, there's a lot of like filling in the gaps with context and exploring context within which to hold experience. And so the context of kind of embracing the weird is quite nice, and the context of, well, what's it like to have the experience, and then let the meaning unfold from the experience rather than try to pin it down in the mind before you've actually finished having the experience. That was something that we were talking about today, which I thought was quite cool as well. Yeah. There was something else that Grass said that I thought was quite cool, but I forget what it was now. What does it mean to activate energy in the body? What's the relationship between balance and intent? I don't know what it means to activate energy in the body, to be honest. Sometimes I steer away from that kind of language, activation. And I guess when it comes to things like touch, for me, I tend to think of it as I'll bring awareness to a point by touching it. So I bring awareness, I touch the solar plexus, and that's really just bringing awareness to the solar plexus. And once awareness is brought there, it's like you're looking at something, then once you're looking at it, it has the capacity to change a little bit. So I don't exactly know. It's not that I don't think that it's possible, or I just tend to steer away from that kind of language because I don't know it myself. Like I don't know it from a first person experience of activating energy. Yeah, I don't know about that. Balance and intense. What's the relationship between being balanced and intense? Yeah, I don't think I know that either. I find that intensity like the intensity part is the thing that needs to happen to get to the part after that. So when I'm using breath work with music, and there's intense music and intense breath work, and you have to have this like flurry of activity to then land people, it's like they have to exhaust themselves out. They have to exhaust that intensity in order to be able to get to the point where they can kind of lie back and open, and that opening and softness is where the shifts actually take place. So yeah, sometimes it's, you get people to breathe themselves into a fury, and they think that they're doing the work by doing the intense thing. It's like, I'm going to force this thing, I'm going to win, I'm going to beat this thing into submission, which is very much my old mindset. I'm going to breathe this thing out of me and clear my whole body, and then I'm going to be pure. But it's really more to get to that point of like, I'm so exhausted that I just give up. And exhaustion is a path, exhaustion is a path. I've really found that if I can exhaust myself to the point where I have no energy to resist anything anymore, that's when I'm really open. So that could be useful. Ways to facilitate the 12 stages when holding space. Yeah. I don't know. Ways to facilitate the 12 stages. I guess I've used breath a lot to facilitate that. And so riding and breath, and this is going, I guess, back in time a little bit with the 12 stages, but I quite enjoy the archetypal structure of the journey. And I guess that is, there's a pleasure almost in it. There's a pleasure in constructing the music to reflect a kind of a journey and an emotional spectrum and things like that, and getting in touch with emotions, and using breath to facilitate that. So for each stage of the journey, there is a corresponding breath pattern. Some of them are more intense, some of them are more relaxed. Some of them are more kind of natural, some of them are a bit more like proactive, like more kind of active and more passive. And I like to build breath awareness into some of these sessions as well. So here are all the different ways that you can use the breath to explore the nervous system, or to explore the body, and how to speak to your nervous system through breath. So that's one way that I like to facilitate the 12 stages, obviously along with the music and the layers. And beyond touch, what are the other tools? I don't know. I guess there's a lot. The thing that comes to mind is just like sounds. Like sounds is huge, and live sounds, recorded sounds, words, which are still sounds, but they've just got a little bit more, just a little bit more precise. So yeah, words I find to be powerful in both the deconstruction and the reconstruction part, and using words to help people deconstruct where they are and become aware of, say, things like the peripheral awareness. I've been using that a lot lately, and diffusing your identity, languaging in a way that like literally speaks to people, but also kind of metaphorically speaks to people, like languaging in a way that can help access new ways of perceiving things. I really feel like language is a container, and languaging things properly can help people feel very safe to open up more. And so a lot of that I'll maybe do before a session is just make sure people know where they are, like create a container with language. It's like, this is how you can feel safe. And obviously you like bring your energy to that as well with permission, but also like secure boundaries. Yeah, and I find language does create a safe container. And then the more safe people feel and the more trust they build, the more they're able to open up and just let themselves have the experience. And that's like, it really does. The more safe they feel, the more safe they feel to explore the bits that don't feel as safe. It's like they can hold their hands to go here and then to here, and we can explore this darkness. We can explore these different patches together. And that's, for me, where all of the stuff happens. It's like, that's where all the expansion happens. It's not strictly just in the kind of the light and the love. I would say it's more so in the patches, the unconscious, the shadows, and places like that. And so languaging in a way that you can help people feel safe to go there is really important. I think that's probably about all I've got for the moment. So thanks for letting me ramble on at will and being a good audience. I'm going to mute myself now.
Thank you. I love that you were looking at the questions. I was brainstorming with Pi and looking at these aspects of facilitation, and then he put up the questions, and then I was looking at them and I was like, I can you help me to think about this, because I wouldn't know anything I wouldn't be able to answer to these ones or to look at these questions. And then it's like, you're not supposed to, just put it out there. So I sent these pre-thought questions, and I actually love that, Tom, you took them and they're like, okay, how to answer this? We need to find the answer, how to activate the body. What are the 12 stages facilitation? So yeah, thank you. That was really, really opening. Oh yeah, all of you. It's amazing to hear and to reflect and activate the brain. To look at all of these different aspects. I did a lot of notes, like kind of, it feels like getting this like golden sentences, like, oh yeah, I'm thinking and I've experienced this, but this is the way to put it into words through experience and what we observe and feel in this space. Yeah, would love us to just continue to reflect, to share, to look at our what comes from our experience, from keeping it kind of in the container of inner dance facilitation and space holding. There's a lot of people who's been having a long experiences on this. So anyone, Fanny, Johanna, Caro, who feels to share, or the ones shared before, but also at the same time would be amazing actually to even go into like a fresh new people who's just started this year, or who's gone through some journeys of studies and now started to hold space, like to reflect kind of the same topics and things about facilitation, because yeah, it's amazing to look at like, this is what we find during the years, and then things that are found freshly right now from the collective space. And then anyone questions, insights of the sharings that was there already, anything you want to use advantage of the space also, where we gather in a very experienced and also very, very in a fresh energy of global community. So we could just go into free dialogue space, and anyone can share or ask or answer or talk or talk from their history with inner dance. You can unmute yourself. Whoever wants to start and whoever wants to continue can just go from there, so I don't need to host in between. Anything that comes to the space right now. Okay, I'll mute myself so then it's easier someone else to unmute.
I have a question. How about before the start of the session, do you guys do anything to like kind of either self-activate or to receive the energy in the space? I've had the experience of feeling that something arrives or lands, and I've kind of filled in the gaps with like my own, woo-woo stories of like, okay, let me call it Send Masters or whatever, but it feels like that's kind of like me looking for an explanation rather than maybe fully understanding it. So I was hoping to ask if you've had similar experiences.
I can maybe. I'll go ahead, Gra.
You can go too.
You go, and then I'll go afterwards.
Thank you. I usually also don't use the same vocabulary as Tom was also sharing with activation and transmission. I do believe that, and it was interesting for me to be in a space where people were also using this, and sometimes also leaving the space to activate themselves before the session. So for me, whenever starting a session, I was just there and feeling the energy and things. So it was interesting for me to see this, and to see that is also what I usually feel is that this also puts us in, this is for me how I see it. It puts me in a space that I'm not source all the time. So I am in a way disconnected, and I need to vibing, tuning, or whatever would be the thing in the spectrum. So this in a way for me was interesting to see that this is it's also a language that is part of a ritual, and the ritual brings or is supposed to give structure to a container to something, and it's very also tribal in a sense, not negating or anything, and just what I feel and how I resonate with it. Now on the other side, how it is that this process of sensing ahead, or what the process is, usually before, like days before the process, that we begin to channel things or words and thoughts and look into theories and just simply start like having ideas of how to construct the playlist. And this in itself for me breaks a bit the hierarchy of time and the sense of rituality that is created with the idea of having to open and close the space. So the way that I see it is kind of like happening before, at the same time it is happening before it happens, it is happening when it is happening, and it is also happening after it happens. On a physical level, I've got to know that my body senses or gets very buzzy and hyper when there are many people in the space. And usually, in order for me to a little bit ground all of the energies that I sense physically in the space before it gets so compact for me that I myself begin to jump from spaces. I don't know what I'm talking, or I'm just like this confetti exploding when people are arriving. So in order for me to also hold a little bit of that explosion that is happening in my body, what I do to start the space is to ask people to share before everything, like of course open what it is and welcome them in the space and thank them for being there, and inviting them to share their names, where they're coming from, if they have ever done this, or if they have any expectations or intentions, whatever the vocabulary is in the space, which also allows me to, it allows me more time also to give names, not to give names, but to interpret the energies that I am feeling in a space in a very splurged way, in a very buzzy way. So when people, or when I open up the space and people talk their journeys and their names and their professions, it helps me also understand what was coming already through my body before the session and what is coming in the beginning when opening the space. What I also do to help myself in this space of bring myself into this container is to have a notebook with me, and I just do like my normal nonsense doodles, like people were speaking and I'm just there drawing whatever, to also help me see, or drawing the symbols and codes that I'm seeing in the space, which are not even translatable in English, but they will also help me in a way kind of like put into time what my body is sensing in space. It's like this channeling thing that that all humans do, this translation process that all humans do. So I wouldn't activate myself, but I've learned how to read it in my body, how to adjust what this anxiety confetti moment, splurge of energy that happens through it, and how to calm down myself also from these spaces. And these were some of my techniques that I've seen and how I've been seeing it. So I wouldn't like, nowadays I'm not even lighting up incense or anything, or it's just more of being present within the body and knowing the mechanisms there. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good. Hey, it's like being present in the body. I was going to say something fairly similar regards to rituals as well. I think, whatever ritual works for you. When I think about kind of woo-woo type stuff, it's like, almost like it doesn't really matter if it works for you, then it works for you. Whatever symbol and image and whatever it is that you're using to help yourself feel how to feel kind of open, I think is probably okay. What I noticed is it's quite difficult to stay in your own energy if you're doing the welcoming. Like if you're welcoming people into the space and trying to manage all of that before you kind of start the session. I don't really know a way around that except kind of working as a tag team. So you have somebody on the door who's helping to kind of organize, and then you can just sit with yourself and feel what you're feeling. And I really do find that, like the peripheral awareness meditations and conscious connected breathing, to be something that helps to just ground me in that. It's like I'm opening a little bit more vision, so I'm able to take more in. If I'm in that kind of anxious space, it's much more, I'm much more almost like threat focused. I'm looking for where's the trouble spots, how am I going to solve a problem kind of thing. Whereas I think a lot of the work, to be honest, I think a lot of the work comes before you even get to the session. And it's just work over time of working with yourself, working with your body, doing iterations of sessions so you can learn to feel more relaxed in a session and being okay with making mistakes in sessions as well, because obviously the more iterations you do, the more you're not hinging everything on this one session. When I first started, I was very much doing that, where I was like, this one session is going to define me for the rest of my life. And it's like, no, probably not. Unless it's mad, then it might, but probably not. And so I think like over time, that just naturally falls into place. But yeah, any ritual that you can do to help you relax, even if it's just a cup of warm tea, like that's worked for me in cold countries, is like just have it's a very British thing to do, by the way, but just have like a cup of herbal tea, and it's like, I feel nice and relaxed. Now I'm open. My I'm in a kind of a nice peripheral, ventral vagal parasympathetic place where I can just observe and take in and interact from a grounded place. Like I don't have to channel the energy of about 20 different gods. It's like I can just be here and see what happens. And that for me works, but that's maybe just my ritual. I think everybody has a different way, and like really whatever works for you, you'll find it. And there's a process of finding it, and it's fine to make mistakes with that as well. Just keep going. 2 cents.
Thank you.
I
Hi,
want to add.
I'll go.
Sorry, who's that? I want to add for this ones. The first thing I do that really grounds me, and I resonate with what they shared, is that I check that all the technicalities work. Because it really messes me up if something doesn't work. So that on its own really, really grounds me. And I find it super important. And I'm a very it's very diverse how I would prefer myself in the setting of the space. I do ceremonies, so when I'm in a ceremony, when the people come and they know that it's a ceremony, I do all the woo-woo stuff. But in the inner dance, I don't feel it so much as important, because as Tom said, like the work is done before. And what I remember with what Grass said is I make people also share what they, almost like one of the questions I like asking is, why are you here? What brought you here? And the energy of their sharing kind of gives the activation of the space. It's like, it's kind of like it's saying what's there, that's already speaking in the room according to what they know they intended to be there for. But it's more about, for me, it's more about emptying myself rather than doing stuff, because on a personal experience, I feel the energy of the room before I come to the space. From the point of, as Grass said, like even choosing the songs and stuff, it's like there is no time. So it's kind of like you kind of channel already what the room is going to speak about, or what the music is going to sing, or what kind of sounds going to come through you. And even the journey itself, sometimes I feel the general journey through my body. And then just taking my mind out of the ego, out of the I am going to do something in this space, but rather I give myself the invitation to undo all of that, and set in myself that I am here only as a channel of the room, and of what voices wants to be spoken back to the bodies, because it's more like one question I like asking these days is, from what region of the earth they're from, like what nationalities, rather than the name. I'm not so interested with the names. I'm more interested with what country they're from, because that kind of like gives me also an idea what I can prepare for when you are familiar with the generality anyway. Everyone is unique, but there's kind of like general energies that different bodies kind of bring to the space. And all of this I kind of cook in my system. And then what I usually would do is really ground myself, but at the same time open myself to be the channel of the divine. And it is not me who is doing whatever needs to happen, but being in humbleness to the wisdom of each and every body that is in this space, and that kind of prepare me to facilitate. There are many. Ideally, you get to speak and set the tone in the space to taking them into responsibility. That on its own is already very powerful to help me prepare, because it's like yeah, the verbalization of how you can make the people feel safe and trustful of themselves and of the space, sets the tone for my body. It's like when I'm able to say that, I'm prepared already. And there have been moments that I have not been able to speak for some reason in the beginning, and then I would still verbalize that when they're lying down. And yeah, so in short, it's really grounding the self, being very present, as Tom said as well, and also opening myself to just be as empty as possible, but yet recognizing where I am at. There have been sessions wherein I'm really sick, but I still have to go, and then I would feel all the energy, and I actually become like a feeling this energy of a horse afterwards. And on the physical, I would feel the energy really coming through when I'm feeling that vibration of emptiness. And that vibration of emptiness is fuller than the vibration of I know what I'm going to do. So that trust in the I don't know what I'm going to do, but I trust in the divine working through the space. And I trust in the darkness that will come through the space, because it will all just cook and dance together in the room. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I really resonate with the sharings. Maybe one thing I can add, yeah, this question made me actually reflect on the meaning that it holds and the many layers present. It's interesting because at the beginning, when I started to facilitate, it was only a few sessions that I experienced inner dance and laid down, and I was co-facilitating. And I really didn't know what I was doing, and there was no like prior training or anything, and the answer was just like, oh, trust. And I was like, okay, but I don't know like anything. I don't know where to touch. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. And the word energy was the only word being present in the space. And I was like, yeah, okay, but what is it? You know, I really didn't know like how to handle this, or to, and then I had this type of, I don't know, trust, or felt I was kind of guided, or I was like, okay, so before actually a session, I was just surrendering. So I was just like, I was talking a lot with the universe, and I was like, okay, I don't know what this is, but I trust that I'm a medium, and that the energy is gonna pass through me, and then the music was starting at the same time, and then I was facilitating. And so this was the beginning when I started, where could be seen, yeah, depending on the definition you give to things, as a kind of self-activation, or more like a universe I don't know, activate. I don't like the word activation, actually. But it's interesting because then it came to my mind to observe one of my last sessions in Germany, where I was renovating a friend's house, and then I didn't see the time, and then I was actually late, so I jumped in the shower, and then I arrived when there were already like participants there, and then first thing I do is also to jump in the technical like sound processes, because it's the the thing that can handle you or or yeah, that can break down. So I just, I'm focused on the speakers and the iPad and the laptop and what is happening, and I'm not actually setting up this space. And then I'm kind of in this hectic like okay, I take a shower, I do this the whole day, and then I sit down and I look at the people and I'm like, oh hi, okay, now I'm here, and I just arrived. And what is interesting for me is that it feels like there's something related to the present moment, and like just to bring awareness to what is there, and it seems to be the same thing that I was actually doing when I was beginning, just like, okay, I'm here, and this is like, I'm just being present to what is there in the moment, and then I'm sitting and I'm just opening the space, and we start with a check-in, and I'm like, I feel that everything that happened before, would it be like me trying to prepare the space ahead of time at the beginning, or just hectically coming into the space and jumping into something, so something that is happening before is held now, and then is already being continued in the future. And what is it that I'm holding that is influencing the space, or is it actually that I'm tuning in that moment to the space, just by being aware of my surrounding, and being aware of like, okay, looking at the people and seeing them really, and just being present to my surrounding, and the starting to listen to the space when I'm actually landing there. Yeah, it was this good reflection to have, and then I do agree with Gra, Tom, and Flora, what they shared as well, like in different spaces. And I think one thing I felt like sharing also, when I looked at the questions, a lot was already said in the space. It's related to what's the scariest thing that can happen. So in the 10 days immersion we held in France, we did like an intro the first day, so like kind of half a day, and then the next day we started a full day of training. And in one session, this person became blind from one eye, and she's not new to inner dance. She knew inner dance from before, and what was interesting is that she could really take responsibility for her process, but then I didn't know where she was at or how much she would take responsibility. So it was interesting for me to observe myself and be like, okay, so we have like 4 people that are completely new to inner dance, and then the second like session they have, this person becomes blind from one eye. So there's kind of this sensitivity that I can feel in the space, and then there's the full trust that I can feel from myself, but also from her. And then wanting to come from a space of allowance, it's like, okay, how can I hold the fear that can be present, and also the fear that can be in me, and what yeah, how, what, like if I would be in a place where everyone like maybe after 10 days it would be like something, but at the beginning of a training where new people are there, and the space is already like skeptical about the energy, then it's like kind of tricky to hold because you have the skeptic people, and then they already kind of in reaction or fear, and then so there's this part to hold, and then there's the other part. So it was interesting to be there and to hold it with her. And she was like, I'm okay, like everything is good. So I stayed with her. She was in the process, and everyone went to eat. And then we had a discussion, and she was sleeping in her tent. So I went to her to her tent, and I first I brought her some food, and then she could eat, and she was like, oh, it's interesting, I'm just gonna eat with my hands and experience the process of this. And she was really like in trust, and sharing also where she had insecurities or fears. So it was like I could see she was holding it. And then we went into different discussion also about inner dance and other spaces. So it was good also to hold a dialogue, and also it was a very good reminder for me to like let go of myself and just be present to create any conditions that she needed. So I was really trying to just see what were her needs, whatever it was, and what does it mean for me to create the space for her to, so like she could, so kind of to have a container so she could really drop in and go wherever she needed to go. And so at the first moment, she had like both eyes kind of blind, one that she could see, but she didn't want to have any light coming in, so she was covering it with the scarf. And then the next morning I went to her tent and I went to see her, and I was like, do you need something, do you need food? And she could see from one eye, so it was already like she was into her process. And then of course everyone was curious in the space, so how do you speak to the space, how do you address the fears also without like addressing something directly, because you want to speak to everything, and you don't want to like I didn't want to assume also that people were going fully in fear, or I didn't want also to project anything of mine. So it was very interesting for me to go into this and to observe what does it mean to hold a group when something kind of serious like this can happen, and like myself going into aphasia or things like this, like can be sensitive and can trigger very deep fears, that without having a sense of cognition or a reflection on them can be very like impulsive. So yeah, so we addressed this in the space, and we talked about it, and it was a very interesting process for everyone. And actually everyone really came together to try to understand the meanings that and then she could also share when she was ready. She could share her process and what it meant for her to like to look into this. So it was really good in the end, but it was kind of I'm not setting up the space actually. Now it's coming to me. I'm not setting up the space to say that this is going to happen, but I'm like, if we're in a process of allowance, then anything can actually happen. And then we can also like, to allow everything to happen is also that we trust that whatever happens is being held within us and for everyone, and that the process that the person is going through is also a process that we are going through. It created, like what she went through created a process in me, in the others, and within the group, and it got also like talked about again during the immersion individually or in the group space. So it was super interesting to observe, and also to see how much it's inspiring to see how much someone can take responsibility for themselves right away. And yeah, so this is something I wanted to share through this. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say shortly, I resonate with everyone and everything. What Johanna put in the chat, that there's no on and off button, is kind of for me, the reflection of is something then activated in myself in the beginning of the session or before. So maybe after 3-4 years, we went quite in a collective space to the process in Finland with the co-facilitators, that the more you hold space and process yourself, it's like the inner dance starts to be everyday life. And when it goes beyond the workshop or session, there's kind of no difference that am I now in the process or activated in the process and not. And I kind of saw the shift, how to hold space or how to start the spaces or the sessions, because where I started was very raw inner dance, like the my entry point in India was kind of just like, okay, I met Katie, English lady who Tom also worked along with, in a random cafe, and she said, oh, there's this inner dance, and lay down, and it was really kind of raw and real and nothing added. She facilitated with Coca-Cola bottle banging the walls and that kind of playlist, and that's it. So I came in with that, but then when I went into different trainings and more this Bali type of inner dance, renamed work, like spiritual workshopping life, I got this format where we ended up like setting the space by cleansing with sage and Palo Santo. We needed both because one was not enough, so we had to have sage and Palo Santo. Crystals, feathers. We needed to do intentions to facilitators and ourselves, and cleanse the space and cleanse each other as facilitators. So we went all around our bodies with the sage and putting intentions to the space. And there was like a lot of work before even able to kind of think I'm able to do this, or I'm able to be in the space. So then we did that for many years, kind of, and I totally agree, setting up the space and having that time to tune in is good, especially if we live in a city and come from a very hectic environment. It's of course beneficial to kind of slow down the breath and be there. But then doing all these things started to look like kind of like a theater act, and looking at, okay, what's beyond this as preparation. And then the biggest learnings or insights for me was where kind of the moments that I learned that I'm not so important in the space, I'm not so needed in the space, I'm not actually the one creating the process in the space. So making like, and those are the moments when your speakers die, or a neighbor comes and knocks to the door and say, can you guys please be quiet, or some people have had like police coming in, I don't but anything can happen. And then how do we act in the situation? And okay, so I have two points I think in my journey. That one was when I started DJing live, so I couldn't be touching the bodies, because the touching the bodies and going around was so necessary, because I was so needed in this space. And when I tried first time DJing and I was stuck with my phone with the DJ app, I couldn't go around and no one else was facilitating the space, and still everything was happening. So I had to look at, okay, what's actually holding the space? What is facilitating here? And then I went more into that, the sound and the music is the one holding. So I'm not actually so needed. And then another moment was when starting to hold really big groups, like 60 people. You know, you have no control, you have no ability to be in that space. How can I facilitate and influence and make this process or activate myself or others to go into this thing? And just looking at the space, and the space holds itself, and so 60 people will facilitate, the whole space is just holding itself, and then realizing like, okay, we are in this journey together. It's needed that we are creating kind of creating the space and holding the space together, but the equality needs to be there for me. So I'm not the one so important in this space. Of course, the collective space that we are all there is important. So those kind of moments have also like started to rip off things, like making it a little bit more raw. So slowly all the crystals are not so needed and all the smudging is not so needed. And from I did also my own, because from a Finnish shamanistic teachings, or the ancestor teachings there with some of the shaman grannies I studied and worked with, was that you use the rattle and you have to shake it to all directions and call all the nature, the directions and spirits there. So I also added that one. So I put my own ancestry in the space. So I and then I sometimes did it like kind of like in a curious way. Okay, I'll do this one too, even though this weren't taught to me in Bali, but I'll add this Finnish thing. So I also went like secretly into some corner and asked these things that so there was like a whole list of things to kind of prepare until realize, like for me it's a full trust process, like slowly, session by session, and witnessing my own and other people's process, like trusting whatever flows through all of us naturally in this world. And that's it. It's really not anything needed to add there. So yeah, now it's, I can do all of it, but it becomes like a game and fun. I can smudge as much as I want and and do everything and anything in this space, but it's coming from awareness that it's not needed at the same time. And I hardly prepare in any way. Also, I think in Finland, what works the best for our mentality is like genuine, that you are actually yourself. So if you are tired and you're coming also from a hectic workday and you come to the space, if you're trying to look really happy and energetic, it's kind of fake and people already feel it. So for me, the same that Kra and Flora and everyone was sharing as a check-in, I also check in very honestly when I'm in the space. So I don't need to hold a role of facilitator who is shine and light and love if I'm actually feeling like shit, or my partner just left me, or something. I don't need to hold some illusion of being a perfect facilitator there. So it works in our culture that, because people will sense it anyway, so I don't need to put my story out there to bombard people's space if I'm still the one kind of organizing them to lay down and going into their journeys, but starting from this very equal space that we are all journeying together. So whatever is happening in me or the other people is all there in the space. So I cannot bypass myself being there also in the process. So when I facilitate, I'm also in inner dance process, but and yeah, the boundaries, being facilitating or laying down is also something we talked last week. But yeah, making myself not so important. It's a lot of the ego processes for me was there the first years, and then it's good to kind of, I think it's part of it all, as Tom said. It's really natural. I don't think any of us will avoid that our self is important, or a spiritual ego, or our ego or whatever ego, but that we need to journey those waves of also experiencing these things to be able to understand it. And it's nothing to bypass. And I think the more kind of honesty I've learned to speak myself in the space, which is not easy, because beginning years there had to be kind of this illusion of space holder or facilitator also. But the more I've learned to speak my truth and say to these things like, oh, I said this in this space, and this actually came from a very self-aware egoic space. And if I say that aloud to the people in the group, they're you can see how they trust you more and more. And when it's a trust process, when you are honest about your own self, not putting yourself higher than others, it creates a tremendous trust. And you can see it affects how even in the beginning, you don't need anything that people kind of trust the space already. It's like immediate. It's actually quite instant if that's held. So yeah, that's kind of my practice, is this kind of even like a radical honesty, which breaks the rule of me being like yeah, something else than what it is there. And actually that creates a lot of openings and surrender and trust in the space. But this might be very different cultures too, and different occasions where people still need some illusion, and then they need it and we might hold it, and then things might open later on. But yeah, this came up. Yeah, thank you. Love to hear more, all of us.
Thank you. I think I just wanted to add one thing that I thought from what you were sharing, Italy. Yes, I would never ask them to do anything that I myself wouldn't do in this space. So if I'm asking anyone to check in, I myself as a person check in. So we do hold that horizontal shavasana space in which everyone is actually the same. There was even, I think I did even something that it was very different for me. I think, it was in one of the immersions, that the first session that I held, I was alone holding the space and everything. And the first session, we actually all lie down. So there was no one touching bodies in that session. It was, I just put up a playlist and everyone just lie down. To also play with this ego ideas, hierarchical systems, whatever words are there, and to let people know that we do this also. This is part of our lifestyle. We're not like putting up a show. It's actually something that we truly resonate with and we believe in. The other thing is that I was realizing how important this question was actually, because if at the same time we talk about opening space, there is the closing space, and we do have like dialogues to integrate things and ways of saying bye-bye to people, bringing people, like putting up light and giving people some chocolate to just like create the sense of closing. But there is one thing that we do know, is that the process for also the people, it doesn't end when we eat the chocolate and say bye-bye. So this is also something that I let them know in the beginning of the session, that there might be some repercussions, is that the word? Some other effects that will happen after the session, or like 1 week or 1 month later, they realize that they're not eating the same way, they're not sleeping the same way, they cannot speak the same way. So they will notice these changes afterwards and everything. So this in a sense this question in a sense helped me see how this is actually just freeing ourselves up in a way, and bringing also more integrity to what we speak in this space. If we are saying that this is an ongoing process, and that inner dance shifts our perception from something that is more process oriented than goal oriented, this is in itself materialized when we are holding the space and we are having the experiences. So creating a ritual, if we need the ritual, creating a ritual that is actually in resonance with what this energy holds, that is a process. It is an ongoing journey into becoming something, which is we complete with that. So what would be then this ritual that is compatible with this, that is held by this? So yeah, even the opening and the closing the space, and all of these things that are here and are here to be honored as well, but also to be looked at as in what is the paradigm, what is the belief system that is around these words, and how much in alignment this that we do is when we are holding the space or something like that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think just to add on that theme of authenticity, the human relatability of the whole thing, I found helps people, and that kind of horizontal relatability of like, we're all kind of the same. We're in this. We're more of a circle than we are a hierarchy. I think really helps people to feel safe and feel trust. And when they feel safe and feel trust, that's when they're able to let go more. So yeah, I really echo what Italy and Grau was saying then. It's really, really important to go through that process of, notice yourself being in the kind of the ego space. And you can talk about that as well, like, like Italy was saying, I noticed my ego played up here, and it's like, it doesn't need to be deep and heavy. It can be like, oh, I noticed this thing was happening and my ego started to get involved here, and then it did this, and isn't that funny? And it just, I don't know, it lightens it for everybody involved, which I think the more of that you can actually bring, just the more it creates trust in the space. So yeah, I'm a big fan of all of that.
I just want to add something to this as well. The tea that Tom mentioned earlier, I make sure that I have my ginger tea because I sing a lot. So I literally, if my voice is finishing, then I'm like, I need my ginger tea. So I find it very important and very, very simple, but very important that one of the most important thing to begin with is you have to make yourself comfortable, physically, energetically, and comfortable in yourself, comfortable even if you're in a bad mood, or even if you just had a fight with your partner, or you just lost your job or whatever, like comfortable in that space, because where we are at will also set the conditions for how the people will feel where they could be at as well. They will feel it. They will know it within their bodies. So making myself very comfortable, even with the way I'm dressing, I know, for example, that it's like there's fire inside of me when I'm holding inner dance, and I have to make sure that I'm very comfortable with my clothes. It's very, very important for me. One of the technicalities that I actually make sure, apart from the speaker, and making sure that people will be also comfortable in their space. These things really prepare me to start the journey, and being in that balance of, I am in humble space to the wisdom of your bodies, to what will happen to the room and what will ever will be channeled in the room. But I'm also in a space of, I know this energy, or if you're a new facilitator, I trust this energy. So once that is emanated in this space, that really sets a really, really good tone. And also with the preparation on the, like the smudging and stuff, like what Tom said earlier, like whatever resonates for you, because if you really, really feel you need to use all these tools in that space, use it, because if it's important for you, it is important that you feel comfortable with what you're doing. And things shift, things evolve, and also depending on tuning into the circle, there is a way wherein you can be in the space and be in the comfort of, I don't need any tools, and then that can set the tone to the room. Or there is that space as well that I'm using it, like what Italy said, like you can use all these physical tools, but also with the awareness that this is not what is actually holding the space. Yeah, but what resonates with you is very, very important.
Yeah, just quickly to add on to that, I find like the physical tools tend to be a way to calm your own nerves about something sometimes, and it's like that, and it's fine, like it's okay to have that, like if that's what calms your nerves and allows you to feel more relaxed and open, and go ahead and do that, and even like do it with awareness of like, I'm using these tools to do that. I also remembered what I was thinking about when Gra said earlier about the colonization thing and like colonizing people's minds with your ideas. The less you're doing that, the more comfortable people tend to feel as well. So that's why I'm always quite wary of trying to push my ideas and convince people that it's like this and this is what's happening and this is what's going on, because you're kind of coming at them with need, in that sense of like, I want you to believe in this thing that I believe in and validate me in my ideas, which the people kind of feel that a little bit as well, and there's a slight contraction in that. I know that because I've done it, and it's like, oh, that didn't feel very good. Why didn't that feel very good? I had to investigate that. But it's yeah, I think it's really like the less you kind of need from them in that sense. You can present the ideas and you can explore them together, but it's like you don't need them to believe in anything in particular. And I think that's really one of the things that keeps me coming back to inner dance, is it's like it's not structured around a belief system or dogma or anything like that. It's just exploration. It's just really in its most sincere form. It's about exploring what's there. And I think that's what I really love about it. And the whole authenticity thing is also a way that it stays sustainable for you as well. And the times where I've kind of moved away from it, I've noticed there's been the times where I've felt like I've needed to be this guy or this kind of facilitator. And the less I need to do that and the more I can just be authentic, then it's more sustainable for me, because I don't have to put energy into being some kind of spiritual ego type thing. But that's been a struggle throughout the years.
I add one small thing and then give it to Oscar for Floor about the tools. What, yeah, feel whatever is needed, and then that's needed. Exactly. We had this thing, kind of like a game or practice, like how to facilitate weirdness or how to even like break the logical brain. So we started to take, like before we set up the things for the workshops in Helsinki with my co-facilitator, we were like, let's take anything we feel from our homes, our houses, or if we have a nature immersion, like how I hold like a first kind of group facilitator weekend or partner work, was saying like, go and get anything you feel like it for the facilitation practice. And some people brought like berries or pines or sticks or something. And then, so we had all these feathers and crystals and stuff, but then we always took something else. And we went into this kind of fun game at home, because I was living that time sharing a house with my co-facilitator friend, and with Mari, we're like, okay, let's intuitively pick whatever we feel like outside of all this. We had a car full of instruments basically, and speakers and microphones and stuff. Like, let's pick anything else that we feel right now, just like tune in and whatever. And I think I wasn't so wild and weird, but she took like the weirdest objects. Like once she took this reindeer skull or some like a kitchen brush or anything basically, and we just brought them in the space without deciding to use them or not. And in one moment, she or me would facilitate, maybe bring this kitchen brush or toothbrush or whatever was there to some person's hand. And then it was like, again, the synchronicities and the sharing in the after circle was like spot on. Like Tom's, who was sharing that Saule in the beginning, if a speaker drops to some participant's head, but then actually that's like the breaking point of the space. So there is kind of ways to, I felt we were like playing with ourselves, like, okay, let's break these certain rules that we've put up a form of a workshop, and play with this space and the things or whatever is found from the actual space in the workshop space. Like we allow ourselves to take anything from the space or any sound also. And it's not like, I feel it's a practice to free up the logical mind slowly to play with the weirdness. And then maybe that's what our weirdness jam 2 days ago, we were supposed to have a serious jam because we have a kind of musician friend from Manila here for 2 weeks, and we started this really full moon jamming and very serious, and suddenly like yeah, there's baby talk and Hi and Fanny and everyone just went into this like weirdest sounds, like we're channeling our light language. And I was like, what the hell? But this is so fun. Like, oh my God. And then we just went so fully into it, and I recorded secretly. They didn't know. And then like it was like, okay, this is facilitating like some kind of freedom and weirdness in us, which felt like so like a freedom space. So this kind of same consciously taking, things that are not in our scripture or structure of a session might like play with that kind of thing. But yeah, Oscar, you had a hand up.
Hello. Wow, such inspiring listening from me. Also, in the agreeing between all the participants, there's clear differences and clear different structures and different languages and different approaches, a different role of the person and how each of you describe themselves, and with your vulnerability and your beauty, how you share about the journey. Well, I have been taking notes, and I would like to share some thoughts. I don't think that I'm giving some inputs, maybe. I just want to allow myself to be expressed. Well, one of the things that I really love about inner dance is this marriage between science and spirituality. I feel that the real science have the understanding, the left brain of few things that we are able to participate, and also the science can give us a lot of other foundations that can allow our understanding, cosmovision, and spiritual experience another foundation. And this is why I love to be here studying, especially for my background. Well, I would like to say also, share something intimate that maybe will allow to understand why I'm conditioned and colonized to think in the way that I think and feeling in the way that I feel, and sharing my nothingness and at the same time my presence in the space, and how and why people feel as they feel and why they return to the space that I am holding, or is whole when I release the control and the magic happens. Well, to me, in my personal journey, I got the abandon of my mother. So to me, the connection with the Divine Mother, and actually having the experience when I was in 2 moments in my life, almost 3, 2 moments when I was ill, to have a very spiritual healing and transcendental remission of things is something that I cannot not just explain, I cannot deconstruct, and I cannot disappearing unless with the experience in itself, how I can demystify the experience from Pai when he was suddenly taken by this energy and being alone 2 years and going through this process, and now we are diving in different layers and we are witnessing how this beautiful complexity and at the same time how much purity we are able to receive, enjoy, inspire as a seeds in our heart and our minds is so beautiful. But at the same time, how to keep growing the unification of the understanding in order to allow this mythification, putting out of our minds and our ego the constructions. What we are deconstructing perception from the space and holding the space from fear, as I was listening, from ego, from society, from religion, even from consumption. How this modern life make us to see the inner dance space and our role as a facilitator, as a maker. We are making, we are important to hold this, we are selling something. So I found this very inspiring to listen in this. Also, I think that in my case, I'm still growing. And I will still growing for sure. I will still learning. In the very short time that I am including music into whole energetic spaces and these processes and being held by this grace, I really feel that there's something very higher that is so higher that make to each of us being the same. And also is so higher that can make us to be that and remember that we are one. Also, there's things that there's three, I don't know, I fit it in 3 dimensions in my personal case. I have to be clear with things that I cannot share, and it's not necessary to share it with the people because I will be colonizing them. I'll be selling ideas that don't need to be there, they are not required, and they don't need for going there. But I feel that it's very important reminding our very deep connection to life, our very deep connection to the spiritual nature of life. Each of us, I'm sure that we have a different degree, important realization and experience that we can be sure about it. And this confidence and this vibratorial space and this knowing, this acceptance is so much important in order to disappearing in the space, because a head full of fear cannot hold this properly. I believe that. And this is, for me, it's important to be connected and to allow this to be as a very foundational aspect inside and outside of the space. Is something that is about taking our experiences and really integrating them. If we don't integrate our experiences, we will need repeating until we take it. I believe that. The other part that I see that we hold and we are crafting now through sound, noises, and more understanding and all these depths that I really love, and I'm fascinated, and I see how much I don't understand in that layers, how to hold the vibratorial space with trust and confidence and making another resonance, another vibration that is merging with the sound and merging with the space and allow to us to be affected by that and being journey with the people. I love to be in so much processes when I am inviting people to join to the online session, because I'm really going through processes. I love to be able to cry, to feel pains, and maybe when I'm sharing this, and sometimes I share this ahead, some people is reflecting on their experience, things that they feel like a similar, and we realize that we were together journeying, and not necessarily it means that, but when it happens, it's very interesting to see that phenomenon. And the other space, the other thing that I believe is the attitude in real time. And this is very paradoxical, because it's very important to forgetting all that we know, all that I know, all that I think that I believe, all that I think and I remember, and really being in the real time as a very little one and being there aware to what is happening. I love to see the intuition as the future of the space, talking and dialoguing with me and with each of the people, because I'm sure that the intuition also is happening to them experiencing and going through what they are going through. And regarding to the question that is in the chat, in the group, I just can say about the first about the first question, that in terms of science, everyone have a hard field beyond, if we want to talk about aura or bodies or more into layers that we cannot touch and we cannot confirm in terms of science, but each of us have a electromagnetic field that is coming from the intelligence of the heart, is coming from a very much identified system, neurological and intelligence that can be demonstrated today, and we can share facts about it. I feel that it's important to recognize this. There's an intelligence that is beyond of our mind, and it's inside of us, and we are sharing that. And when we are aware of that, it can play a role that is not played by us, but is playing a role. What does it mean to activate the energy in the body? I feel that this, again, this sense of trust that all of you has been describing beautifully and a very much expanded, has to do with this field and the information that is running through the space that is sponsored by Mother Earth, and is also the purpose of the universe to evolving, to aligning, to becoming whole, because the universe is the most interested in expressing itself and being aware of itself through each of us and through each living being. So we are not doing something, we are just aligning with the purpose and the essence of the systems in itself. And to me, this is the mechanism that is operating, that is really giving me the guarantee that I'm not in charge of the wellness, the goodness, and the magical and powerful things that are happening. And it gave me such a sense of humbleness, because this universe is so huge, so high, so beautiful, so loving, so compassionate. And I am in the side of that. I believe that. And I believe that each of you, newcomers and all of them, we are messengers of that trumpets, that message of life. The 12th stage is where I really cannot say a lot of this. I still learning a lot about that, and I still exploring inside applying the concepts that we are now diving in, and it's fascinated. And when there's so many people in the room, I really believe, and I has been noticing, that recognizing our own roots that every one of us have in our energetic design connected to Mother Earth, to me has been something that allowed the process to start in itself. Not trying to teach him, because this is not something that we need to teach, is already here. We are here alive because we are in that intrinsical natural connection to Mother Earth, as also we are naturally connected with the other field that we have here in front. If not, we don't have these chakras. If not, we don't have, if it's not in that way, we don't have the design and the ergonomy that we have. So I feel that this is a resource that, especially for immersions and for deep works, is interesting to contemplate it. And also contemplating the aspect of the paradox. The paradoxical thing is the only one thing that can make us merging the two brains, the two hemispheres, the science and spirituality, the being someone and not being nobody, the being the one and not being nothing, and being nothing, and being able to don't allow also the ego that make us to grow in a hierarchical way, and also the ego that put us under our value and our dignity. Sometimes can be a line that we don't see, that the most difficult ego to put in the place is the ego that diminishes you, the ego that pretends that you don't value or you are nothing. And it's important to be in this middle line where we know that we are entangled with everything. That this, I follow a guy and I like what he teach. His name is Michael Bedwick, and he say a thing that maybe can be my last part here. He say that when we are in this victimism, this ignorant and full of fear consciousness, we see as everything that happened to us. When we are in this coaching mind, in the second layer, we are in this coaching mind and this mainstream spirituality, where you can create everything, you do everything, you can create your life. Yes, we can create how we react with things and how we choose to react, but we really don't have control of many things. At the same way, we don't have control in the room and in the space that we are holding with people. We are not in control. We don't have the control. Also, in this third realm, the things happen through us, and we start to become part of something, a mechanism, science, music, space, awareness, humbleness, rituals, all these tools that they allow to us and to our ego and our soul, our little mind, to see that something is going through us and we are cooperating with something more bigger. And in the 4 is very the paradox, where it's the bigger paradox, because the space happens as you, but as you disappear, the space happens as the space is. So I wanted to share these inputs. I hope that my English was good enough. And yeah, thank you so much. It has been very inspiring, Colin. I will think that I will listen again. And yes, thank you for having me here in this community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Melba, you have your hand.
Hey
Oh.
everyone. I know we're a little over time. I just wanted to quickly ask, I'm relatively new. I'm not a facilitator. I haven't facilitated. Maybe, I hope I will someday soon, but I've been practicing a lot, and I haven't been in a space where like these exorcism type of I guess reactions come out. And I find it very interesting and fascinating. And I think Tom and Flor both said that that you guys could kind of like push the energy. And I was wondering how, if that was like with the music, or yeah, I guess just how, because then I also heard you guys say like, you know, we don't do that anymore, we back up or we tone it down. Yeah, so I guess those were my 2 comments. It's fascinating. I haven't been like in a space yet, at least not in inner dance or CAP, where such reactions happen. So it's good to know, like good awareness. I think all of you guys brought that up, that it does happen. And I think you just have to give it space and let it like keep calm and let it pass through. Try not to be afraid, but yeah, my question was more about yeah, the intensity of it. I think I heard some of you say like, you know, we're intense, or like we were at that moment in time and we toned it down, and I was just wondering how you tone it up and down, I guess. Thanks.
Yeah, anyone who wants to comment? I can just say 2 sentences that when those really intense moments have been, I think the first thing for me is like to to learn to take everything part of the process, and that it's natural, and not try to stop or limit anyone, because that would like accelerate it. So if it's a practice for myself to just observe it, see it, and like slowly getting used to the most weirdest, intense, scariest things. And when they kind of yeah, when for me those are part of the process, and okay, I'm also able then to go and hold it for someone and go through it with them, but never trying to stop their process, or saying something is wrong in the space, because then I hold fear, and then everyone else would hold fear. So many times if something really intense has been happening and other people has got like scared, but if they see the facilitator being fine with it and actually holding it with peace, and not trying to avoid any of it, it actually calms down the whole space. And then in the sharing after, usually everything makes sense to everyone. But there's a lot of how we react. Do we try to avoid it, or do we try to prevent it, or say no, or yeah, there's a lot internal learning process for myself, because of course it's not, yeah, that's the school how to allow everything and everyone in this world. It's not only inner dance, it's when I walk in the street, how do I react to someone who is crazy next to me, or going into psychosis, or it's not in the session, it's like out of the session practice too, like do I try to limit people's like, yeah. And then of course boundaries are there. If someone tries to hurt someone, there's a boundary for me. No one is allowed to be violent or something like that. So, but in 8 years, I never seen anything super intense, like super duper intense and scary moments where I've had to go through my own fear. But it never went anywhere that wouldn't have been handled either by the one who is holding the space, like the main facilitator, or the whole community who is holding the space, or the group, or myself, or the person who is in the process. So there's like huge trust process. But for me, it takes time still to just always observe it and be like authentic also with the fear. But yeah, first sentence would be not to try to prevent or limit, because usually when I done that in the beginning, when I've tried to, one girl went into panic attack, and I took her ankles and tried to ground her, she just went more and more, and in an actual panic attack, and she had a mental things in her past that I didn't know. So I was trying to prevent her to going in there, and then someone else came. So that's why I've always also co-facilitated, because then we support each other. Someone else came and was like, oh no, she needs to go through it, and someone else facilitated, like pushed her to go deeper into it, and she actually breaks through it. So different ways, different situations, but we're learning. But yeah, Tom or Flor, or anyone who has any experience on this.
Yeah, I'd like to share. That question actually holds or opens the question that you've given us, Italy. How do you hold the 12 stages? In the room, there are many instances wherein everyone is in a different stage. So you the question was, would you deal with it with music? Not all the time. Sometimes yes, and sometimes there could be 10 people and one is in this chaotic, um, really, really intense space. And one could be in a complete illumination space. One could be in a complete bliss. What do you do with the music? Especially if the playlist is already set. If you are playing live, it's a different scenario, because you can manipulate the music according to, in my experience, what I feel is that the loudest in the room is kind of like the loudest stage that is happening in the room. That's the loudest energy. And I feel that there is a certain point wherein we don't have to keep pushing a person. If you, as Italy said, it has to come from the confidence. If you are not confident within yourself, because everything is just a mirror to us as facilitator. When I enter the room, I know that this is, this is happening with me, for me, to me. And so there could be a time wherein you'll keep pushing. I've watched some facilitators do it, that a person needs to be guided, not to push, to be guided into the next stage, to be guided into disintegration, to be guided into the collapse. They could be guided into whatever the next stage, or whatever stage the person should be, and this person keeps drumming and drumming and drumming and drumming, and then the participant gets traumatized more and more and more and more. So there's a fine line between being able to actually allow the person to keep going, and to actually push even more to a part where the person can't hold himself or herself. So the technique I do is that I make sure that I am able to assist the person to be reminded that he or she is safe. It's kind of like you give the option to the person to have that capacity to choose. because choice, I feel, is very important in all the stages. Like you either, like what Tom said, like you can stand up if you want, you can leave the room if you want, you can go deep if you want. So it's being able to verbalize. So if the music, for example, is already a set playlist and you don't play live, is I verbalize the guidance or the assistance or the permission, more so, that what, however the languaging would be resonating with you and the person, is that to make the person feel safe, that he can keep going, or he can also go to the next stage, but not to stop or manipulate what's going to happen. And that is either through verbalization or through music, if you can control the music, or through the touch. However, whatever happens there is still perfect. I had one specific journey wherein I removed all the blankets of the people. It was in Dubai, so it's AC, and it was so cold, and it's always kind of the journey of people, because the AC has to be on, otherwise it's not possible. And some people can get very, very, very cold, as we know, probably spoken before, the changes in the temperature of the body. And there's one specific person who is actually sick, and she got super cold, and she got so angry with me because I took the blanket. It's because when you put the blanket, I can't see them. And luckily the person trusts me, and it's not the first time. But she went for it. She went for it, and I was able only to remind her that it's safe. It's safe to go through that coldness, and it's one of the most powerful journey I've ever witnessed of her, because she ended up remembering this shaman in her, and she started tapping her body and then recollecting whatever need she needs to generate. So everything is still perfect. I've learned to realize that verbalizing from the very, very beginning all of these things holds the entire space up to the end. Yeah. And I want to go back to, because I don't want to miss this one, the question on preparing what to do to the self, and then what Gra said, this actually brought the question what to do in the end. I feel that the inner dance itself, or the journey, is a complete song, and there's a crescendo and there's a decrescendo, and you have to enter gently and you have to exit gently, and everything that happens in the middle, and that's where all the different stages can happen in one body, in all the bodies. And although this can be learned by experience and through time, that all the bodies can have many different stages, it's also good to know now, even if you haven't possibly facilitated, that the entire room holds itself, supports itself. So sometimes someone who is in a very, very cathartic state of screaming and everything is not really always a bad thing. It actually can give permission to the other bodies to actually go into their dark, to actually go into their crying, to actually go in their crazy, chaotic spaces. And it's almost a blessing for me when I see this intense processes. It really becomes the strongest voice that holds the journey of everyone else. And in the end, you'll notice that some people would actually thank this person for going really, really loud or really, really scary. Yeah, and I would like to end this sharing that when I am the facilitator of the space, the thing that I always keep in my mind is that we are these vesica-physis. We are always merging, and always keeping it in my head and sharing it to the people to perhaps keep it in their head makes actually everyone kind of safe, feeling safe, whatever happens in the space, even if someone can go really really cathartic and loud and scary. But going back to a technicality, is that I am able to guide it through verbalizing if I cannot manipulate the music, and verbalizing and touch to give the permission to the person to choose. And it's not like you're going to say choose, but just give them the safety nugget that you're safe. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Usually very good with time, but we are, 20 minutes over time, but it's so interesting to listen to all. So selfishly, I don't have a need to stop right now, but maybe 10 more minutes if you guys are up to some sharing still. I don't know, it's 4:30 soon, but I feel like we could just go on and on and on. But
We have a line.
line. But maybe if
Okay.
we give a kind of closing short to Caro, Saule, Graha's hands, and then so if Caro wants to start because you haven't been in the voice yet.
Thank you. I wasn't here. I wanted to try to add something. Many things have been said, and also I resonate a lot with it. I just wanted to add something about the closing of the session. That for me is really important. And once it happened to me to have like someone like really like it was really was the first time I was seeing like someone like going in really deep into an inner dance like that. It's like after the first minute, the music was played and everything. She started to shake. She started to rip the mat, the yoga mat off, and she's starting to get off her clothes and everything. Then she was crying. I was like, okay, trust the process, trust the space and everything. And then she's just like she was tearing the yoga mat apart. So I let her some space, and she went to other participants, but with the closed eyes. But she was really deep into something, and she spent the whole session then she was sitting, and then she was swinging like back and forth, and I felt like I had to let her like going through her own process. What I wanted to share about that is like as facilitator, because at the beginning I didn't know I wanted to facilitate actually. Finally I ended up like doing it. But what you learn is like trusting yourself, okay, but trusting the space is really important, and also to offer that just this dialogues at the end of the session is really important, because some people they cannot talk, some people they really want to share something, or some people are really fried. So fried, they're like, oh, you cannot just let them like go out in the street like that, you know. So for me it's like really a space, an important space to have and to offer like the last circle of dialogues. And this girl, she shared like finally after everyone, because everyone was afraid also, because they saw her like really crying. They heard her like she was screaming and everything. It was really impressive. She ended up like sharing that she had like this vision that she was like burned into a bonfire, like as a witch and everything. And then this process led her like to this child abuse and seeing her abuser and everything. So the final dialogue was really like really good to offer like a landing for everyone, not only for her, you know, for everyone, just to listen to the space and to listen to the what was happening, and that we went through this process together. She was not alone to do that. So just to add this quick add-on on it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to also, regarding the last question, to speak to one part of it. It's like there is no answer or the way to do or hold space for a specific kind of expression or catharsis or possession. When it comes to those exorcism or possession type of processes, I don't know, usually I see that some people, I call them spiritual tourists. There are people who just like going to those places, and you sometimes just recognize that it's that type of a person. So you don't need to really feed that process. But in general, we always know here within us, if we are in a clear, like Flora said, you know, you have to empty yourself. You have to empty yourself and empty all of this. Why people lay down in Shavasana and kind of surrender to and kind of die with their current identity to be able to observe something. You also have to surrender to that process. And in that moment, when something happens, you always know what to do, unless you start thinking, oh, I have to do the right thing. Like, oh, I have to like control it or push it down or kind of release or hold love or light, whatever. Like if you try to do the right thing, that's when you go out of the empty space that knows what to do with the process. So just wanted to point that out, that it's not really important to know what other people do in those cases. You will perfectly know what to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't have how to say in English, prescriptions that are equal to all. Okay, Gra, do you have thoughts there with your hand?
Yeah, on the closing, I've also had like sessions in which people would be going around in their own processes. And if I actually also look back at my own process, my first big explosion was in the end of the session when everyone was leaving. It was maybe even after the circle, I don't even remember, but my body just started moving and I was going into it. And in the end, it was just me and the facilitator. She stayed more time with me. And I've also had experiences. Oh yeah, so and then when we are in circle and this was happening with other people, and I also had to hold the circle, the dialogue, what I would do is just also allow time, give a little bit of more stretching time in the end, and slowly also begin to guide people back to circle, to whatever process there is to happen, in a sense that I wouldn't say that like, hey, you need to stop this right now, not with that language, but also creating the limit aspect that the dialogue, the integration dialogue brings to the space. I also remember that what I've been feeling lately is that this entire like 90 minutes journey is kind of like, it feels like for me that yes, I'm putting babies to sleep and then I would be waking them up in the end. So even in the beginning, when I go into sounds like or more like sounds that are kind of like, I've been noticing that there is this nurturing energy that is coming up from my body, that yes, not everybody just goes to sleep, twinkle twinkle little stars. And then the magic party happens and we go places But then there are, of course, the 15 or I don't know how many minutes within your playlist and journeys. There are other techniques also to start awaking the babies up. So it is, in a sense, like this moment to bring them into bed and then bring them out of bed. And well, we do have our own experiences with our own mothers and also taking care of others on how to do things gently into like, hey, now we start waking up, and then in the end verbalizing things and creating some sentences that even before the playlist is ended, you are already verbalizing, helping them integrate from the inside, like asking people to also tune into their breaths before the playlist comes up, or to their bodies, in a sense, to start moving their feet, or things that, yes, the space will tell you what language to use. But in this metaphor of putting the baby to sleep and waking the baby up has really been something helpful for me. I really just wanted to mention one last thing that is regarding the self-facilitation that is also present in what's her name, Melba was sharing, since she hasn't shared, she hasn't facilitated yet, but she's experiencing it. She's experiencing the journeys. I've had also intense experiences by myself, even without playlists. And I was just reminding myself of one of the intense experiences that I had, which was with Jingle Bell, the cat, in one tent. And I was really just going over this. I just sat on the tent and I was petting the cat, and this really intense anger started coming out to my field, and I really wanted to kill the cat. And then after that, I went like for minutes imagining how I would kill everyone that was in the retreating Maya. Literally, like I would chop this one up like this, and I would do this one like that, and just going over the energy. And what I have been learning, and of course, I've had also other psychotic moments and maybe other out of the normal experiences by myself while alone in the house, or just simply walking in the street. What I have been learning and what I've seen is that the more we react to something with the same energy, something comes up very, very intense, and we react to it in a very intense way as well, as like, oh, this is not the space, or this is not right, I'm losing my mind, or whatever it is, I'm going to lose control and start killing everyone. The more we react to this energy the same way, the more that we are actually just putting ourselves into that psychotic loop as well. And what I've learned also how to trust, and how the energy has also taught me how to trust, is that since the beginning, it has showed me that there is a huge network of intelligence in this. When I went through aphasia, before, I think it was 3 weeks before I lost my language, I heard it in my mind, you're gonna lose your language. And this is like, we can talk about retrocausality or anything else, but in a sense, it just also taught me that this thing is intelligent. This thing knows where it is going. This thing knows what processes I'm going to go through. And of course, a part of this thing is me, but anyways. And the more that I allow just things to, in a sense, be in the space, and the more that I've learned how to be observant, how to bracket, how to hold myself in these weird processes that I had, the more I was able to hold space for those demons and those weird experiences. So I until now have the anger rushes and all of that psychotic things. This weird thing has been happening that I've been seeing the demons, which like with way more fractals, before they were just like blurry demons. Now I see them like real things with my eyes open. And the thing is that it is just showing also to me that the resistance, the reaction, it just loops it there. But if I allow it to come to me and to talk to me, or even if I'm not in the space to have that conversation with that energy at that particular time, what I just tell it, I just tell the demon or the emotion is like, please come to me later. Come to me later when I'm in a more relaxed space, when I can deal with this, or whatever it is that is happening. And it does come, and sometimes it also comes in different shades, in different ways of energies. It comes in dreams, and it shows me things. So I've been learning how to listen to this intelligence to this intelligent system, and also to allow this intelligent system to show, to teach me that there are so many things that we just repress and we just react to them out of lack of time, lack of trust and everything. So in the self-facilitation process, allowing this and perceiving that these experiences, that they are ongoing, they are layers, and you will never, there is something, because we are dreaming awake, we're constantly aware and conscious in this process. I now know, and I have been feeling that, oopsie, I am now here stepping in a border of something that I haven't explored, and I feel my fear, and it just stops. It just knows how far it can go. And slowly you will be learning, or you will be going like, okay, now I can go, I can put one toe ahead of this experience, and that's it. And that's what I allow myself today, and I'm perfect as it is. It doesn't mean that I'm not like awakened or whatever it is. No, it just means that I know where I can go. I know my surroundings as well, and I am responsible for this process. And like this, you will go like peeling the onions as well in your own process, within your own time, allowing yourself to slow down that fast, because it comes very fast a lot of times, and I've been in the very fast intense surges and explosions and everything. But it has taught me also that I can slow that down, and I can find other languages and ways of channeling all of that fastness. And yeah, it is very, very intelligent since the beginning, and just trusting it. Thank you.
Thank you. So trusting the intelligence, she didn't chop us. She did share with us like, I want to kill you all in a circle. And we're like, okay, can you tell me how would you want to kill me? And the cat is here, and she had a few kittens, so she's alive. So we trust the process and the intelligence. Some sentences that have been really also came in the last call. Johanna shared this: full freedom means full responsibility. Or kind of I hold in myself that there's nothing will happen in the space that goes beyond what me or the other people couldn't handle. And then like reminding people in our space that they're full responsible. They're not in some other trance hypnosis. This is not a hypnosis, this is a conscious state. So even people would have tendency to go somewhere and like wanting to not have responsibility, when we do remind them that this is not the case in this space, this is totally free. So everyone will go exactly as far as they want, consciously or unconsciously, but they have a choice. And like what Tom was saying, like saying, okay, if you need to pee, open your eyes and go to the toilet and come back and lay down, and the process is not going to stop, or like you just then go lay down and see where it goes. So kind of making it kind of more light and maybe easy and playful have been helpful and can be helpful in this space. I think we have to close. I don't know if Flora had some words to close. We are time-wise needing to kind of close the energy space, but Flora can maybe do that.
There's just 3 strong words that have come up that I really live by at the moment, which is inclusivity, authenticity, and curiosity. Curiosity being that original system that in an inner dance space, it is simply a space where the creator itself has been so curious and is so curious to speak back to itself through different bodies, through different unique bodies, allowing all their authenticities to flow through, and allowing being in this inclusive space that everything is allowed. That's all.
Let's close together. This was amazing. I feel like such a gift to have all of us in this space and just share and see thumbs up. So we can unmute. In Chop, we trust. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good morning,
Thank you.
good night.
See you soon.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao, bye. Bye bye.